Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Eureka Heights Brewing. You can find them at 941 West 18th Street or head to the beer section at your favorite vendor and find some delicious cans to take home. I would highly suggest the Mu Caliente or the Mini Boss. Currently, at the table, we are enjoying a large quantity of Wicked Awesome. So make sure you get over there, 941 West 18th Street. Check out Eureka Heights Brewing. Tell them Gentlemen No Class sent you.
This podcast contains explicit language and is intended for adult audiences. The views and opinions of Gentlemen No Class are strictly for comedic purposes and should not be taken literally. For instance, like this disclaimer. Now grab yourself a pint and enjoy.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Gentlemen No Class, a podcast that when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. I'm Jake.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Rob.
And like it or not, gentle ladies and gentlemen, we are the host of tonight's episode.
So it's been a couple of weeks, and joining us in studio tonight is Ruthless Ryan Davidson. A long time coming. We've been trying to get him out here to sit in with us. Ryan, thank you so much for driving all the way over here and hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah, baby. There you
Not
go.
a problem. That's
There you
me.
go.
That's where the fun times begin, man, for my friends.
Yeah, you just did it with
thank
the
y'all.
crack.
Thank y'all for having me. Sweet setups, sweet guys, and all that good stuff. Yeah, I'm being sweet
yeah,
on the
baby.
podcast. But no, I appreciate you guys, man. Thanks for having me out. Cheers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I'm pretty sure that I ran into Ryan, or at least saw Ryan, at Royal Rumble last weekend. That was last
That was
weekend,
2 weekends
wasn't it?
ago.
2 weekends
Yeah,
ago.
2 weekends ago, yeah.
So I'm not a big wrestling fan. So let me tell you the story of what
Fuck
happened.
out of here.
Not for lack of not enjoying
I know,
it, but just
It's
I've
all
been
good.
out of watching it for 10, 12 years. So
I understand.
my buddy Ryan, who's been on the podcast a number of times, it was his birthday. So me and another friend of ours bought him tickets to Royal Rumble. So all three of us were going to go as a bro date, Royal Rumble. It was going to be cool. The first time back in Houston in a long time. Apparently it was some big deal, So we bought tickets for it, and then we surprised him on his birthday. And then he was like, "Oh shit, yeah, I already bought floor seats for me and my wife."
Of course he did.
I was like,
Nice.
asshole.
Nice.
So I was like, all right, so I guess me and Brian will go and we'll figure out somebody else to bring, And I
Yeah.
told Ryan, I was like, well, then it's your ticket, so you do what you want with it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, you can give it to your brother or, whoever, and we'll all go hang out beforehand and, mingle around or whatever. So he was like, no, take Melissa, my wife. So
Melissa went?
yeah, because her and Ryan's wife are really good friends also. So
there you go.
so we just all went together, and then Brian backed out the last minute. So it was just me.
What?
It was just me and my
Man.
wife up on the. It was at Minute Maid, so
Yeah.
we were on the mezzanine level, the Honda suites or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah,
they
yeah,
are,
yeah,
like
okay.
the nice wood floor level, which is nice. So we went and had no idea what was going on. Because I don't know what the storylines are now or
Yeah.
anything. So, but Randy was there.
Oh, yeah.
So Randy was up on the upper level by
Randy,
the smoking section.
Gomez,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, of course he'll be in the smoking section, right? I mean, why would he not be?
Yeah. So anyway, so
Yeah.
we ran into them up there,
cool.
and yeah.
But
it
did you
was-
enjoy yourself at least?
Yeah, we enjoyed the shit out of it.
that's
I
fun.
didn't know we were trying to keep track. There's no announcements when you're there live. So it's hard to keep track of exactly what's going on. People would come in and you're trying to watch, and then the screens in the arena would do the countdown for the Rumble but then you lose your sight of
fun.
what's going on in the ring. So it's I can't really tell what's going on right now. So
Let me
So
ask
when
you
everybody
this.
was cheering when Edge came back, you were like, "What the fuck's going on?"
I knew who Edge
Oh,
was,
okay.
and I was like, I feel like this is a big deal because he looks old as fuck.
Yeah.
So
There was a loud pop. I can tell you this right now, and I've been a wrestling fan my whole life, but the two loudest pops I've ever heard in my life was Stone Cold Steve Austin's entrance at WrestleMania 17 in the Astrodome.
Astrodome,
Nice.
yes.
2001. That was a 16-year-old birthday
I think
gift.
I was,
by
I was
my
there.
mom.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great.
Was that
And then-
the Hollywood themed
No. That was WrestleMania 21. That was in LA. No, this was just X7. It was The Rock, Stone Cold on the Pro. Oh, I can go wrestling knowledge all day, brother. And then the Royal Rumble when Edge came out. I mean, it was a shoot pop from me. Like, I just stood up, just going, "Oh wow, that's totally cool." Because that was my first event that I went as a wrestling fan and not being like a part of the actual event as an extra or dark match or whatever for WWE since like 04.
Yeah.
So this is like my first like actual like I get to go enjoy it as a fan, and I had a blast, and it was awesome, man. So they did a good job.
That's
they did a good
awesome.
job, man.
Which is funny because the last match that I went to was WrestleMania 17 at the Astrodome.
There you go.
Remember, because that's the only, what I remember most about that is that was when Triple H was still wrestling, and Motorhead did his theme song.
Yeah.
And Motorhead actually played it live.
Yeah.
We were right next to the stage.
Oh, that's cool.
That they wheeled out. That's where our seats were. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Lemmy's bass right there.
Yeah,
like,
man.
And I was like, what the fuck? Is Lemmy coming out here to play? And then like they walked like right there. They were like this. I was like, holy shit. Like that was the coolest part to me. I mean, WrestleMania was cool too, but like I was that close to Motorhead.
Were any of the Mexican commentators tables trash when you?
Oh
went?
yeah, they're
All the
always
time.
Always
all the time,
That's
bro.
the first.
That's like
the
a
first
recurring
people.
like gag throughout the whole years. That I remember almost every pay-per-view event in the '90s. I was like, when is it gonna happen? It always happens, and it's fucking hilarious.
So,
Oh, dude, all the time.
The women's rumble. Maybe you can help me with names here because I don't know anybody's names, but
Absolutely.
In the women's rumble,
Luna.
she was a tall black chick with nothing like afro and like
with the afro.
Yeah, with the
that was
glowing
that was
boots and stuff
Naomi.
like that.
Yeah, Naomi. Yeah.
So when
that
she
was her
got
turn,
knocked
yeah.
out, she like jumped to the side fence and didn't hit the ground, so she wasn't eliminated.
Kofi Kingston did shit?
And then
she did. No, she
shit.
totally did, and she did a phenomenal job with it too. Man.
That's
She did
awesome.
great,
and then
yeah.
she worked her way around and then destroyed the Spanish announcer's table and then picked the table
Yeah,
up.
man, it's a
She
staple,
picked the
bro.
table up and then moved it so she could
staple,
walk
yeah.
across
You
it
said
to
it.
get back in the ring.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like it when they do that. That's freaking cool. I mean, did anybody
I like
do that?
when they trash the Mexicans.
No, but like
I
I think it was a '97 Royal Rumble where Stone Cold gets eliminated and no one saw it, and he goes back in and he eliminates
Oh
Bret
yeah, that was
Hart.
in San Antonio. Yeah, he wasn't supposed to. It was, like another thing, like with wrestlers, is that like under the camera and the lights, like you got to like. Well, the way they used to do it back then, and some guys still do now, but like lather themselves up in like baby oil, brother.
Nice.
Got to get the physique
naked
showing,
world
bro.
men.
So that's what happened. Like apparently, like a lot of guys were hitting the ropes, and it was real slick. So he looked like he was getting teased. The next thing you know, he just went right out, and they were like, "Oh fuck!"
he
like,
wasn't
you ain't
supposed to go out.
So
That
he
wasn't
just kinda
supposed to
like-
happen?
No,
Or-
it wasn't supposed to
fuck.
happen at all. So to like cover all this up and what have you, he went over on the Rumble. But then for everything to make sense, the very next month they had like a 4-way match. It was like Taker, Stone Cold, Vader, and like somebody else. And then that's how like Taker got the main event working. I think Sid Vicious WrestleMania 13.
Nice.
So and then Stone
Way.
Cold had the famous submission match with Bret Hart,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they're
that-
just
that's
trying
them
to
over
piece
the top.
everything together. Yeah, man.
This may be a dumb question. The Rumble, is that always like? Do they know who goes over in that match?
Yeah, no, dude. Wrestling. I'll tell anybody this: wrestling's definitely not fake. It's predetermined. It's no.
But
different.
I know there's matches and everything, but even the Rumble, because I think that was I always look at it as a free for all. Everybody has fun.
Yeah,
You know, go
Hell
with
no, not when you put fucking what's his name in there as the first guy.
Oh, Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar. I knew Brock. They were like Brock Lesnar, and Melissa knows Brock Lesnar, and I was
So
like, holy
awesome.
shit! And then he's just fucking like manhandling dudes like right out the ring.
Yeah,
We're like
right.
before the buzzer even goes off to bring in the next guy. I was
Yeah.
like, well, this is fun.
So
So glad we paid all this money to watch this.
Dude, as a fan, I'll tell you this, just to piggyback off that, once again, not being into an event as a fan and God knows how long, so I had a few drinks in me, you know what I mean, a few Crawford box and what have you. So Lesnar's killing everybody like for the first 10 entrants, and I'm just like standing with my buddy that I went with, and we're just sitting there like, that's a monster in there. You can't fuck with a monster. This ain't no fake stuff. And all these wrestling fans got like the boo-boo face, like, quit making fun of everything. And dude, it was so funny, man. But no, I personally loved it. And that's the thing too, is that like with the Royal Rumble, like there's been so many, so you have to change things up every year. And I think they did a phenomenal job the way, not only did they built up Brock, because he is a monster, he's unbeatable, but then it all got to set up to where they put over Drew McIntyre, and the way he went out, you know, doing the favor for Drew McIntyre, man, was just, it was beautifully played and beautifully well done. So there you go.
I've been listening to the Stone Cold podcast, and you know he interviewed Lawler, and Lawler was mentioning that he thinks that
he's got his own podcast.
McIntyre, they thinking that McIntyre is going to be the new like Roman
That's
Reigns.
the dude, man. That's the dude. The guy's a wall. He's a walking wall. And I've met him a few times, and actually got to sit down and have like a small little 3-4 minute like one-on-one conversation with him, and he's just like a dude like anybody else, man. And that's the thing, like a lot of these guys, they bleed just like we bleed, man. Like they're just, you know, just because they have a lot better, cooler jobs than most of us doesn't mean that they're just like, you know, some guys they get the ego and stuff, but once again, this is predetermined. It's not everybody, not anybody's like the actual real world champion. It's all based off performance, bringing value to the company, if you're marketable, so on and so forth. And Drew, man, he's just a normal dude, a massive dude nonetheless, but normal dude, man, works hard, and dude, everything that's happening for him right now, man, he deserves it. So it's cool.
That's freaking awesome.
It's cool to see.
So I was really waiting on Chris Benoit to come out, but apparently somebody told me that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, man.
Damn it.
They're supposed to have a movie.
God damn it.
You're the motherfucker that were like, "Hey, did Chris Benoit come out?" You're the one that texted me that.
Yeah, man. Dude, I love Chris Benoit. He's one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I mean, not cool for, you know, doing what he did and what have you, man. But as far as like wrestling legacy goes, man, he's paved the way. You know what I mean?
On paper, but
Like apparently, like they were doing an interview with
still
his son.
doesn't hide the fact you kill your wife and kid.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
His wife used to be the wife of Mongo, right?
No.
Steve McMahon?
She was Nancy Benoit. She was known as Woman.
Okay.
This was a different time in wrestling, so like girls didn't have a name. She was just
Woman.
literally
Wow.
woman.
How
Imagine
long
that.
is it
That
gonna
can't, bro. If we could talk about all the things that won't fly in 2020 for pro wrestling, we'll be here for 4 weeks. But no, yeah, she was married to Kevin Sullivan. Kevin Sullivan, who is the Taskmaster, WCW, and a good worker, and he was also a hand in the office as far as like booking and what have you. But they actually, long story short, they actually had like an actual real life, pretty much feud. Like they really didn't like each other. But the thing was that they had to wrestle a lot with each other on TV, and that was the thing that like Kevin Sullivan, like Woman Nancy, was with Kevin, but basically behind his back, like went with Benoit. And then they had to go out and be like, oh, by the way, the dude that's like banging your chick, like, yeah, y'all got to wrestle each other now. So, but they kept it pro and just went. And there's a whole story behind it. And I don't know the details. It's none of my business, but it's a very interesting story nonetheless. So when all this Benoit stuff went down, immediately everybody was like, Kevin Sullivan had something to do with it. This is payback for this, that, whatever. All the conspiracy theories out there. But it's a sad situation nonetheless. But like I said, like the wrestling legacy, man, he's absolutely one of the best, man. So
infidelity goes on both promotions with WCW, obviously.
Yeah.
With Sunny and WWE.
Yeah.
And
Sunny. She's got
around
porno.
everywhere.
It's pretty good.
Sunny?
It's pretty good.
It's kind of old.
WCW?
It's
pretty good.
He does have a porno.
WWF?
WWE. WWE.
Yeah.
No, F.
F, whatever.
I don't
Yeah,
care.
same thing.
I don't
You
say
know.
E anymore.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I'm an F
So-
error.
Well, yeah.
you are in the effing error.
Yeah. Yeah, fuck you.
So let's talk about, because this is super interesting to me, because I can look this stuff up, but I want to hear it like from you. So
Okay.
I stopped watching wrestling. I did not do it on purpose, but it was around 2002, 2003 ish area. So can you walk us through? And I know we kind of talked about it the last time we had you on the phone, but you know what? It's still interesting. So walk us through the start of Reality of Wrestling, like Booker T's retirement from pro wrestling and like him starting this deal, and then like how you started and kind of got involved with that and got to where you are, a double title holder now.
Cool. Yeah, no, real quick, and I'll try to make this as short as possible because I'm a chatterbox, man. I talk a lot. So basically, I came into books in the summer of 2008, and it was known as PWA. And it was really cool because at that time, Booker was basically on the tail end of his WWE run. He did the favor of working Triple H SummerSlam. He pretty much, he had his business taken care of to where he was no longer WWE, and then he was going to TNA at the time, which now is Impact Wrestling.
What's PWA stand for?
PWA, I believe it
Professional
stands.
Wrestling Association.
I think it stands for Pro Wrestling Alliance. I believe, but
Yeah, kinda close.
there were in Houston. There were 2 PWAs, which was also funny because the other guy that ran the other PWA inside the same city also wrestled for Book. His name was Jared Steele.
Oh, nice.
So, it was pretty funny, but Jared's a good dude, and it was a decent promotion, so it wasn't too bad. But anyways, going back to Book, so he was with TNA, and I wrestled for.
I'm going to interject
yeah,
real
please
quick,
do,
'cause
yeah.
I'm pleading ignorance on this. WWF at the time, the WWE is what everybody associates professional wrestling with.
Right.
But there's multiple.
Yeah.
So let's start in like
promotions.
2001. Like what were the different leagues or businesses? I don't know how you what the proper
So
nomenclature is.
Wrestling circus,
WCW got bought out by WWF. Okay, they got bought out by Time Warner, and then a lot of those WCW wrestlers, they waited till their contract was up, so they basically just sat at home and got paid till like 02. That's why in like 02, 03, that's when like the Rey Mysterios and a lot of WCW guys, including Book. Well, Book came in a little earlier because came in the tail end of 01. And they got on with the WWF contract and everything like that. So that at that time, for a long period of time, WWE was the only show. And then you just had TNA, which was total nonstop action wrestling, not tits and ass. Yeah. And but they just started, and it was ran by like Jeff Jarrett and a couple other what should I say, investors, and they started running, and then TNA got bought by the Carter family, which Dixie Carter was like the lead financier of that, and they ran all the way through, and then there's been a couple of brand changes and what have you with TNA, but now they call themselves Impact Wrestling, and they're based out of Canada, and they do pretty well. That I know quite a few guys and girls, and I've wrestled basically half the roster that's on Impact Wrestling numerous times, and it's good shit. But going back to reality wrestling, they wrestled as PWA for quite a few years, and then basically around like 2013, 2014, Book wanted basically a rebranding of everything, because at that time when I came in, we were running out of the Pasadena Convention Center, and we were bringing in consistently over like 800-900 people, and we were bringing in all these big name superstars from wrestling every month, and Mick Foley, Samoa Joe. We were bringing in Jake the Snake. We're bringing in Billy Gunn, Rhino, all these different guys. Like, it didn't matter. Like, Book just went through his wrestling Rolodex, and he's like, "Hey, come do my show," and these guys would be happy to do it. We had CM Punk. We had all kinds of guys. It didn't matter. And basically, we left the Pasadena Convention Center, and we went to the Clear Lake Sports Complex over there off Diana Lane and like near like El Camino or something like that, over there down in the Webster area. And it went from like, we draw like 800-900 people at a time, because now we're barely drawing like 60 people. And it was just on a complete decline. And there was a lot of times that they were going to shut the doors. There was like quite a few times, because Booker and Charmel basically run reality wrestling, and they were basically just burning money, because Book has this dream of just like, I don't know if y'all know who Paul Bosch is.
Yeah.
The legendary Houston wrestling promoter, and he's like, I got to keep his dream alive, because that's like Book's legacy. Like, he just wants to build up Houston wrestling and make it a hotbed like Paul Bosch did back in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
He brought in the Von Erichs, right?
No, dude, he brought in everybody. Flair, Wahoo McDaniel, Harley. I mean, it was a legit territory, and a big one at that.
Speaking of, just real quick,
yeah.
At Royal Rumble, did you see the 2 guys walking around cosplaying as the Dudley Boys?
Oh, dude, absolutely, yeah. I saw
Oh
that.
my god, dude, they were spot on. Dude,
yeah,
they were
great.
On.
Nah, man, I saw so many great cosplays, and once again, such a kick-ass event to go to, especially as a fan, because I was just like, when you're in the business, you always get caught up in that bubble of like, you put that hat on of like trying to critique and like, oh, this should be this or should be that. It's like, man, sometimes you forget why you do this shit in the first place, man.
Right.
Just be a fan, man. Sit back and enjoy it. Exactly, and I was so glad to do that. But anyways, going back to reality wrestling, so it was on the decline, and there was a lot of talks of, man, I don't know if this is going to pan out, this, that, whatever. And then, it was always funny, because like every time it always seemed like we were down and out, like something would always happen. We'd get a local TV deal, or something this would happen, or something would pop up just to keep the company afloat. Well, then all of a sudden the rebranding came, and Book wanted to be called Reality of Wrestling. It was initially the thought, based on my memory, was that he kind of wanted this to be kind of like a reality-based wrestling show, to where like they have cameras that would like follow me and other guys around, where it's like, hey, this is real life, but also we have this wrestling show, which really never panned out, and we just called ourselves Reality Wrestling, and we're just another wrestling company at that time. But I mean, now we've built up, and when we call ourselves the flagship of Texas wrestling, I mean, like I was telling you guys earlier, like we just broke over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we got a lot of great syndication stuff like that. Our production is top notch, all this other good stuff, but it built up from that. So once we went Reality Wrestling, then it was just like stages, because like ever since I was there, since 2008, it was like, we got to get on TV, and then we finally got on local TV, and then once we got on local TV, then we started pressing a little more on YouTube, and then it was Fight TV, and then it went from like Channel 39, which what Paul Bosch used to ran back in the day was on Channel 39, so it was like, oh shit, Saturday night, Channel 39, and then after Channel 39, we just exploded on YouTube, because we have an awesome marketing team and what have you, that pretty much kind of just like restructured everything as far as the syndication of like social media and YouTube, because I mean, y'all all know how important that is. Absolutely. And then it's just built up from there, man. And the building that we're at now is World Gym Arena, or Booker T World Gym Arena, and been there since February, basically 3 years, February of 2017, man. And I was in the first main event of that show, and I wrestled Mysterious Q. Q, who wrestled in a steel cage. I beat his ass.
There's a YouTube video of that, man.
I always put him over like 100 freaking times, and I'm like, I'm finally winning a fucking match against you, pal.
That's
you know
awesome.
what I mean?
Man.
Finally. I don't know if I can say the F word. I apologize, but
that's up to you,
gentlemen with no class. I got
right.
Don't worry.
Damn right.
But yeah, no, that's kind of the whole story of it, man. And
awesome, man.
it's been cool. It's been a great ride, and like I know for me, like it's always gonna be like, I didn't get in the wrestling business just to be a wrestler of Reality Wrestling. Like I wanted to be, and I am a world traveling pro wrestler, like Japan, Canada, all over the U.S. Like all these stuff I've done, and I got a lot more coming up for me, especially in 2020. And that's not like wishful thinking, like it's fact. And the thing is that with Reality Wrestling, what makes it so special is like I really, like, not just me, but like I really helped like build that place.
Yeah.
Like from the ground up. Like if Gentlemen of No Class podcast turns into like the next Joe Rogan Experience, like that's always going to hold something to you guys, because it's like y'all started it from like the ground up.
Yeah, with this fucking table here.
Right, exactly. With this table.
And we're going to have this fucking table
Right.
for forever.
That's what I mean. So it's like,
man.
that's why it's so true to me, because it doesn't matter where I go in my wrestling career, like I'm always going to have something apart for Reality Wrestling, because it's always home, man. And it's like family, dude.
Yeah.
And Book's done so much for me and for other guys, and it's funny because I get to step in the ring and beat him up tomorrow night, so it's gonna be awesome. Yeah, by this time, but
a legend at that too.
Yeah,
That's
right,
cool,
So
man.
piggyback off that, man.
Man.
You've been there forever, and you've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
How did it feel? Because there's that article in Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, it
that
was cool.
Book
Yeah.
said, and I quote, says, Ryan Davidson is one of my teachers, and he's teaching all those guys who have taught him. I want him to be the best, so I am very hard on him. I remember once he asked me, Book, why do you hate me so much? And I said, man, I love you. I want you to be the best. How does that make you feel?
It really good, man. That was, and I put it up on my Instagram and social media just because it was, for quite a few years, I had a lot of insecurities. And I mean, everybody still does, you know what I mean? Especially just in life and wrestling and stuff like that. But like, I didn't believe what I was capable of doing. Like, I didn't believe that like I could be like a star, or I could, I could have a good match with anyone in the world, or this, that, whatever. But when I started believing in myself, and then I had like a near-death experience in 2017 that like just changed my perspective on life. Right. And then ever since that, then like I got chosen to go to Japan, and then I went to Canada, and then I'm wrestling all these top men all around the world, and I'm having great matches there. But I go, oh wait, I am great. Like, I am wrestling and having the best matches with people all over the world. Right. And like once that paradigm shift, like then it was just like, okay, because when I legit told Book that, because Book was on my ass month after month, because it would always be like little shit too, because like I'd have these great matches, but I'd always apparently have a superpower for just pissing off Book, just for like one little thing. Instead of turning to the right, I turned to the left, and it fucking made him mad. I grabbed his hand instead of his shoulder. It made him mad. Right. Just something little, but like me being under like that tutelage of Book, like that comes with a price. Because when people, especially in wrestling, like when people, they'll always ask you, who trained you? They could say like, oh, I got trained by this guy or this guy. And they're like, oh, I think I kind of heard him this, that, whatever. But if you go, oh, I got trained by Booker T, they're like, oh, no shit. Yeah. The whole perception changes completely. And that goes from executives in the business and even guys that actually work, because it's almost like a breath of fresh air. Like, oh, you're trained by a guy that knows what the fuck he's doing. Okay, he's a 2-time Hall of Famer, right on. So with that came a lot of pressure. So he was really hard on me, and my insecurities, like, I would honestly think he didn't like me because he would just bash me. And like the type of thing that Book is that if he sets an example, he sets an example for like everyone to see, which is not really my cup of tea. But like, for instance, like Paul, if you fucked up on something, right, I would be like, pull you aside, like, hey man, like you're fucking up, dude. Like, you only kind of da. No, Book would be like, Paul, what the fuck? You're fucking up in front of everyone. Right? And some people might hear that and go, man, that's fucked up. But that was the thing, though. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'll tell you this. You definitely remember shit like that.
Well, it obviously worked.
I think that's where he's going.
That's the thing.
You
you remember that shit, and you're like, man, I never want that to happen to me again. And it happened to me because it applied for me in football and Olympic wrestling and all these other things that I did as far as athletics and what have you. And you know, I'm very grateful for that. So like at that time, I did ask Book. I pulled him in because I was like, man, what am I doing wrong? Like, do you hate me or something? Do I remind you of somebody in your past? And he looked at me like I had a dick growing out my forehead. He's like, man, you fucking kidding, man? Nah, man, I fucking love you, man.
No, man.
What the fuck you coming at me like this, man? I'm like, well, fuck, I don't know. Like, you're on me every month. It's like, nah, man, Ryan, like, you know, man, you fucking way better than this and that, man. You fucking making these and the funny thing was, as soon as he said that, and there was no disrespect towards him, but like, in a way, it was just like, man, fuck this. Like, I'm not going to give a fuck about what he thinks. And it wasn't anything against him. It's just like, I'm tired of feeling the pressure. Yeah. I'm tired of feeling this, and I'm tired of feeling that. And once I stopped, like, giving a fuck and just was more my body instead of my head, everything flowed. All the success came, all the better matches came, and then he came up to me like, "Why the fuck you haven't been wrestling like that? That's what I fucking mean." And I'm like, and then that's why I was like, "Oh, the more that you're in your body and not your head, got it, got it. It's flow, it's flow, man.
You figured it out, man,
for sure."
So let's talk about that then. Let's talk about this, this great run that you've been on. Mm-hmm. Like, take us where it started, because you have 2 title belts now.
Yeah, man.
Which title belts do you have?
So I have the Wildcat Sports heavyweight title, which is basically the biggest and best promotion, ran out of Louisiana, ran by Luke Hawks down there in New Orleans, Louisiana, and Kenner, Louisiana. And then I also have the Hurricane Pro heavyweight title, which is ran, and they're based out of Beaumont, Texas. Both promotions, it's kind of ironic, but it's both promotions, just like reality of wrestling, that I've wrestled for like a good majority of my career. Like at least each promotion, at least 5 years apiece. Yeah. And I did all the respectful things, and I did all these other things, and it really proved myself over time and time again. But it was kind of funny, like how in 2019, like it all kind of culminated to where like, not only like early 2019, like I won the reality wrestling title for the first time, but I also became the first ever Grand Slam champ. Like no one ever done that. Yeah. Which I thought was cool, because I didn't even know until someone came up to me and was like, hey, by the way, you're actually the first ever. I'm like, oh, no shit.
What is that?
Basically, I'm the first guy to win all 4 major titles for reality wrestling.
Nice.
So I won the television title, I won the tag team championships twice, I won the Texas title, and then I just won the heavyweight title. So I was the first guy to do that. And then within a 72-hour period, right at the end of 2019, I go and I work Wildcat Sports, and basically I won their title. And then the very next night, I won that on Christmas night.
I remember seeing that post on your Instagram.
Yeah, Christmas night. I was in Kenner, or New Orleans, Louisiana. Kenner, Louisiana. It's like a suburb of New Orleans, basically the same thing. And then like that following Saturday, I went to Beaumont, and then I won their title. So that's like 2 titles in 72 hours. I was like, oh, nice. That's pretty rad. Yeah, right on. Yeah, man. And I think once again, I mean, this is all predetermined and stuff like that, and all this other stuff. But like, I think it's like a testament of just being consistent, man. Yeah. Just being consistent.
Predetermined or not, I mean, you earned that.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't just decide to, like, it wasn't a roll of the dice. I mean,
absolutely.
You worked your ass off to get to that point. You know what I mean? And that's
right.
It's. I think it's awesome that they're recognizing your hard work, and you know, you're putting forth the effort, and it's
cool, man.
It's definitely. I've definitely seen, like, I don't get a chance to watch. I've watched a couple of your YouTube video fights and stuff like that. After the fact, but I can definitely see a marked improvement in your confidence, the way you portray yourself on social media, especially, which that right there alone, like that's half the battle. It's got to be, right?
Absolutely.
And this is coming from somebody who's completely ignorant on wrestling.
No, dude, I appreciate that because actually your opinion, regardless, like a lot of people don't realize this, but like, people's opinion that they don't really pay attention to the product that much, that actually holds way more value than you can actually think because you're from the outside looking in. Because there's so much different stuff out there. I mean, dude, you got fucking Netflix, Hulu, you got all kinds of crazy shit that's out there. So it's just the casual viewer that's like, hey man, I recognize this, recognize that. Trust me, that's like who we're trying to get. We're not just trying to get the diehard wrestling fans because they already know. We're also trying to get the casual viewer, anyone. You know what I mean? And that's just the thing. So trust me, I appreciate that. I'm not kissing ass. It's honest. Like, I appreciate that opinion more than anybody else. And if anybody that's been in this business like I have or understands the business, like, trust me, things like that, that's why sharing opinions, especially from the fans, like, that's something that I believe. And some wrestlers are very good about it, to where it's like, ask opinion of the fans because their word matters, man. Like, their opinion matters. Like, some don't. They just want to be a dick and just try and get themselves over. But other ones are, like, genuinely like, hey, man, like, this would be cool, or hey, that would be cool, or this, that, whatever. But no, I definitely appreciate it, man. And it really, when I got back from Japan, like, that's when the lights turn on, like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like, okay. Like, Japan, like, literally turned the lights on everything. Like, it was just, it was like I was in a basement with a flashlight, like, trying to find the power switch. And then once I found it and I turned it on, game changed. You know, and that's all it was.
No, go ahead, Paul.
Oh no, I just because like earlier I was asking, like, you know, how was that experience in Japan? Like, I mean,
fucking awesome, man.
How many times have you? How many times? Have you
My
been
first tour. So it was a good and bittersweet thing, man. So, like, I basically, long story short, I went there. I had a buddy of mine that developed a business relationship with DDT, and they pretty much asked, like, hey, you know, who do you think, would be good to bring over? And there was like probably about 20 or 30 guys who's like, hey, look through these guys, see who you want. And it was me and two other guys that they picked. And they go, we want these guys first. Okay, great. So I was the second guy to go over there, but I stayed the longest. And when they originally told me, like, hey, you're coming over, they're like, oh, you're only going to do like 6 matches. And it's like, okay, that's fine, you know. And I was there for about 7 weeks, almost 7 weeks. Instead of 6 matches, I ended up doing 12. So because they saw value in me right away, they were like, oh, this fucking guy's good. Okay, like, let's do this and do that. So when I went over there, man, like, I didn't know the language. I didn't know shit. Yeah. You know, like, I tried reading up on, I tried reading up on so many books and like different sayings and like different stuff of like just trying to how to communicate and stuff like that. But it all panned out, and I had, you know, when I got there was like 8 other foreign wrestlers. They call them gaijin foreign. They had other gaijin wrestlers besides me, like guys from Canada, Spain, America, other guys from like Mexico, different stuff, you know what I mean? So like, it was really, really cool. And there were a couple guys that looked after me. One guy, his name, he wrestles as Speedball Mike Bailey. He wrestles all over like Canada, Japan, and Europe and stuff like that. And he's a phenomenal wrestler. And he looked out for me a lot there. And a couple other guys like Jason Kincaid and some other dudes that are from the States. And I had a great time, man. And people always ask me, like, how do you do a match like in Japanese, like where you can't communicate with the guy? Like, man, wrestling's like a universal language, man. Like, you just kind of like know to go for certain things, and it's all based off feel. You know, there wasn't really anything talking. It's not like I'm gonna sit here and go, okay, I'm gonna walk this way and you walk that way, because we don't know how to fucking communicate with each other, right? So it's just all on feel, and then did really well. And then, you know, I had some singles matches out there, had a lot of tags. The biggest thing out there too, to like kind of test the waters with foreign talent, is that they'll put you in 6-man tag matches, which is basically 3-on-3, right? Yeah. And stuff like that. So I did a few of those, but it was awesome, man. They saw a lot of value in me. I have no complaints as far as the way they treated me. It was awesome, because there's also stories too of like when foreign guys come in, they're like, beat up gaijin, you know, like they want to like make an example out of you. Some people, but they didn't. They treated me like I was one of their own. And then a very historic building they have there is called Korakuen Hall. It's right outside Tokyo Dome in the middle of Tokyo. And it's basically like the Madison Square Garden of like Japan. Like it's a very famous arena. And I got to wrestle there, which was like totally a bucket list item for just wrestling. And not only did I wrestle there, but they put me over. They were like, Davidson up. So like I got the pinfall victory and like got to beat the guy clean. And he did the favor, as we call it in the business. And like, dude, that was like,
in Japan,
like no one, like I don't care. Like people can talk about like predetermined this, that, whatever. no one can take that away from me.
No, for sure, man.
Ever. And that's something that like I hold like that to me. The shit like that's very real. It's very, very, very.
I
real.
can't imagine how you feel, man.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it was
that's
cool.
awesome,
but
that
like,
feeling.
the food was badass. Dude. Fucking Japanese know how to drink. They'd probably drink all of us under the fucking
100%.
table, dude.
They'll fucking drink all of us under the
God.
table.
They'll fucking drink us under the table. Big whiskey drinkers. They love
Yeah.
whiskey
Love
over
whiskey.
there. Love whiskey,
Sake.
beer, all
I heard
kinds of
they,
shit,
they
man.
like I don't know. I think it's
Octopus?
Maybe it's Japan. I don't know.
Octopi?
Tentacle porn?
It might be Japan or another
Yeah.
country
Hentai.
nearby. But like they're really into. I think they're really into like American culture and like and especially like classic rock too. And
Oh yeah,
and,
metal,
Yeah, especially
and punk
metal.
rock. Metal punk rock is
Yeah.
extremely big over there.
They're about 25 years behind America when it comes to certain things. Because there was like
Right.
about 15 years ago.
what about
Like the-
baby metal?
Well,
That's a
what
Oh,
I'm
baby
saying
metal,
is-
yeah. Give me chocolate.
Yeah,
bro.
there
That's
was-
a great
there's-
track. Yeah, man. Yeah.
So back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, the punk rock scene in Japan, I mean, was really great. They had some
Yeah.
really great bands come from over there.
Right.
But I mean, like the mainstream thing was like greasers. Like they were just like
I've
they were
seen pictures of that, like
Yeah.
where they dressed
Yeah.
full on. Yeah, like
Yeah,
it's
that was the
there's
cool-
a culture for that over
and-
there. Yeah,
But that was the hip thing at the time. Like
Yeah.
it takes a certain amount of time for things to like translate from America to Japan.
well, you know what's interesting
Right.
about I don't mean to veer off a little bit. Talking about Japan, but just quickly, a friend of mine was telling me that they, in Japan, like their mindset when it comes to, which is kind of weird. Like when you talk about how things are far back. Like, well, basically, they had the mindset to where, like, we're on our own, and this is it. When it comes to innovation and technology, or whatever, that's why they're kind in a way. When it comes to technology, they're pretty.
Advanced?
They're
They're-
pretty ahead.
bro,
Like as far
they're-
as like
they're
like
extremely
they're pretty much taught to where like nobody is gonna help us, but we're on our own,
Yeah.
and this is it. And, like it's up to us to.
Well, you
know,
remember
the
when we
better-
had Mark
yeah.
White on here, and he was talking about being in Japan back on their big run when the Spin Doctors, when Pocket Full of Kryptonite was like #1, and he was talking about when they went to Japan, and he bought that weird like CD player, VHS player, and they were
Oh, he
like,
tried to
Yeah.
bring it back?
See, they would have-
yeah, and they had like, I mean,
have
yeah,
weird
you
shit like that.
Yeah, you
It's-
look at the stuff that they have over there. I mean, Japan is technologically centered. I mean, like they're one of the. I mean, they are probably where the most cutting edge technology happens,
Yeah, as
because
far
they
as,
don't
like-
have.
Right.
That's their main export. When you think about it, like the United States, yeah, we have tons of import export of different things. Japan, they have to import almost everything. They can't sustain themselves.
Yeah.
So they have to be cutting edge on the technology so they can charge a premium for
Like
it.
what was like. What was it like? One of the craziest things you saw out there, Ryan? You were there.
Dude, I saw a lot of crazy stuff. So and it's there's
Yeah, of
there's
course.
definitely that. There's that. But no, man, I saw a lot of good crazy shit out there in Japan, and it was a lot of fun. But they just have different ways of just thinking than just the way that we do.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it I highly admire and honor. And then like but don't get me wrong, like there's some here in the States that is just 10 times better. When it comes to technology and just the way that they do things as far as like efficiency on things.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I was just talking to a buddy about this the other day, to where like when it comes to like loading trucks, because he was talking about like, loading trucks to where like you put like a pallet at the end of the truck, then you have a guy in the truck that's got a pallet jacket to the very front of the truck, and you just do that over and over. Well, it's because in the back of the truck the door opens up, right? Like here in the States, like no, in Japan, like it opens up like a fucking egg carton for like from the side, right?
Oh,
so like the
nice.
whole top part of the truck like
Damn.
opens up like an egg carton, and you just set
I
your
am not
pallets
surprised.
in there, and you don't have to have anybody. So like they get it done
Yeah,
3 times
so
as
yeah,
fast.
they're smarter than
efficiency
us.
So, yeah,
is
it's
what
things
you
like
said is
that.
the key over there, big time.
Right. So the way their buildings is that they basically just stack everything on top. Like
Yeah.
here, obviously in fucking Houston, where everything's so spread out, it's like everything's so spread out. So, but
Yeah,
like
you don't
with
have
them-
to be efficient in Houston
Right.
because you have the room.
Exactly,
But
right, right,
Japan, space is at a premium.
No,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
everything
everything's
has to
stacked
be
up. Right.
Yeah.
And then like everything's like 10 times smaller. So like this studio that we're in right now, it's a good sized studio, but like this is basically like the size of like one of their restaurants that they would have.
Wow.
Like this right here.
Oh, fucking
this is a
that's
restaurant.
crazy.
You could fit like 30 maybe
Man,
35
you could do-
people in
Kitchen's right
here
over there.
and eat. Yeah. So
You
You can do a
if you're
sweet no holds barred there.
Dude, if you're claustrophobic, do not fucking go to Japan.
Yeah.
You will hate it. I
Or
promise you.
or for
They had
fat.
the sliding
Right.
the sliding doors, right, and all that. Right?
Yeah,
That's
they do, but I mean, once again, their technology, they got just like so much good stuff, and like their amusement park rides are great.
Did you use the restrooms?
Oh, absolutely
did they have?
So,
did you
squat?
Incur,
I did.
No.
I did the traditional,
the American way. Paper.
They call it the Western toilet. That's what they call it, the Western toilet. And it actually has a bidet.
Yeah.
It automatically revolves and changes like the toilet seat cover. That it flushes for you. It'll play music. It'll heat the seat. And this is also on campgrounds. That's how they have toilets like this at in the middle of the forest.
But they don't use toilet paper over there, right?
No, they do. They totally do. No, yeah, they totally do. It's just the thing is that and they even have a button. This is the weirdest fucking thing. They have a button that you can press to where it makes the sound of flushing, but it doesn't flush.
Oh, that's sweet.
Wow.
Like for whatever fucking reason, I have no idea.
I read an article about that. There's a
it's so
specific
weird.
reason
Goddamn
because
Americans coming in my
supposedly
I never found out. Yeah,
it's some kind of weird thing about like making noises in the bathroom is like uncouth to them. Like
right.
you're not supposed to.
They're all about respect and being polite there,
Yeah.
which is crazy. And like they treat you so well, but also at the same time, like there's a good amount of like the kindest form of racism that you can possibly think of. I swear to God, I have two different things where I scared the shit out of some of the Japanese locals completely by accident. But going back to the Japanese toilet, I used a public restroom. I was with Mike Bailey, and we were going to go grab some pho because he's like, I know this pho place, we have to get it, it's great. And I was like, fuck yeah, I want to try everything, right? Yeah. So I was like, man, I got to use the restroom. So it was a public restroom, and it was literally like just down on the floor. I'm like, oh, because like squatting all the way down, like ass to grass, that's like us like leaning against the wall and relaxing. Like that's how they just chill. Like you'll see so many people just like squat, smoking a cigarette.
Yeah,
because they're so flexible. That's just the way it is over there. So I'm like, well,
I can't do that.
Well, fuck, I'm not like I'm flexible, but I'm not that flexible. But let's see how this goes.
Is there any privacy to
Well,
it?
yeah, there's definitely privacy, but the funny thing was that I pantsed it down to my ankles. I tried squatting. I tried to pinch one off, and I damn near shat all over my shoes.
Right.
And it was bad because I'm thinking like, oh, it's just gonna come out like, not to be TMI, but whatever. Fuck it. I thought it would come out like a single like turd, just nice. No, I like explosive, just like
Taco Bell shit,
like the Taz Bell. I mean the Taz Bell, the Taz shits, the blah 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 blah. And it was all over the fucking thing. I was like, oh god, I almost got on my shoes.
Full discretion, I had to do that at fucking Royal Rumble as soon as we got there.
Oh yeah, oh man,
and the fucking like the ratio of men to women at NRG, like you saw lines at the men's bathroom.
Oh, you're
none
absolutely
of
right.
the women's,
absolutely,
but
right.
like the stalls were fucking disgusting, and that was only like 20 minutes into the thing.
Yeah, man.
Please tell me, Ryan, that some Japanese guy just said, "Hey, let me show you how it's done," and he didn't. Exactly.
No. So I was once again at the dojo. They actually had like a westernized toilet to where that was okay. But I mean, everything was so compact and small. But it was great because it made you realize like how much more shit we actually don't need here in the U.S. Like
we're like Amazon.
We waste so much, dude. It's fucking incredible. And they just have a very nice compact way of life, which I really love because it's just like, oh, it just makes you. It makes me way more grateful, like what I have here in the States. Like, man, we got it fucking good. And don't get me wrong, they are extremely high end, well off branch of society, but like they just compact everything, like their fridges, their appliances. We don't need things like that fucking big, man. Like they compact everything, and it's fantastic, and I love it. But as far as going back to the polite racism,
I was gonna ask you about that.
So basically, like tattoos. Like I see the sleeves you got on and everything. So
I wouldn't be allowed in a lot of restaurants over there.
No, you would. It's a lot nicer, but you wouldn't be allowed in certain hotels and certain places because I
think you're Yakuza.
Yeah, they do. They do, and they don't want the trouble because that sparks up attention. So I got kicked out of a hotel extremely nicely because another guy that was very influential, his name's Kikutaro. He's a Japanese legend in like comedy style wrestling, and he's also a phenomenal wrestler too. And he was one of the main catalysts of me going over there. And I went to meet up with him at his hotel, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir, you can't come in." And he's like, "Ha ha, dumb shit, you got the tattoos." You know, he's like, "Ah, fuck boy, ha ha." You know,
fuck
like,
boy.
I'm like, all right, man, cool. So I couldn't go into this hotel, and then I'll tell you four different ones. And then I tried to go into this restaurant with a buddy of mine that was there, and this Japanese guy came up, and he no smile or anything, kind of a blank expression, goes, "Sorry, Japanese only. And I go, I'm sorry? And I'm
Jim
thinking
Crow,
like,
baby.
I'm thinking
You
like,
heard
I'm
me,
thinking like
Toto.
speaking Japanese. And then he just pointed at his arm and he just went like this. He goes, Japanese only. He's just rubbing his arm like, this is our skin color, motherfucker. Like, get out of here. So I was like, oh, light bulb. Okay. Arigato gozaimasu. Like, thank you very much. And I just fucking walked
It's
off.
like under your breath,
Yeah.
you're like, drop another fucking bomb.
Yeah, no shot, bro. Oh man, I try to watch
Should've
on like
finished
this.
it. That's fucked up.
But see, another thing was,
Hey, at the time, I watched a lot of World War II documentaries.
Yeah.
They were asking for it. All right.
hey man, the Netflix ones are fantastic. I don't
They
know
are.
if you
They're
watch
really
those.
good.
Those are fantastic. So I scared the shit out of this guy going across a bridge. Like I was just walking because in Japan, also the same thing too. You better have good shoes on because you're fucking walking everywhere. Like the public transportation is fantastic. Like the train system's super easy. Everything's in Japanese and English. All the shirts that people wear, it's all in English lettering.
Everything's clean too.
It's phenomenally clean. I saw a lady chew out a dude for putting a plastic bottle in the wrong trash receptacle,
wow.
just like some local lady, and she gave him the fucking riot act. And I'm just watching this like at a train station, just going, "Holy shit!" Like she was literally this old woman was about to kick this dude's ass, and he like cowered down, like, "I'm so sorry." He's like, "Yeah, don't come around here fucking up
And
Japan."
well, you know what?
motherfucker."
That starts
Yeah.
with their kids because
Right.
their kids don't have janitors for their schools. The kids have to
Oh
clean
yeah,
the
they
school.
Yeah,
Oh, I
heard
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Huh.
they
It
teach them to
teaches them
clean.
like
Right.
pride in their environment
Right.
and things like that,
There's-
how to take
Yeah.
care of things.
Their streets are
Like
very
America.
clean, and finding a trash can is actually pretty. It's actually pretty fucking tough. Like the only trash can that's around is like they have vending machines at like every fucking street corner, like coffee, sodas, stuff like that. Like Boss Coffee, like they have vending machines fucking everywhere. So that's like where you can somewhat find a trash can. But I scared a old guy going across a bridge because I was just walking to the train station, and he saw me, and he literally just beeline to the other side of the bridge and just walked the opposite direction, like literally like like if I was a fucking saber-tooth tiger or some shit. Like he just fucking ran.
It's the
and
fucking
then,
bear.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
He recognized
Like
you.
legit fucking
He knew
bear.
who you were.
I was
That's
like,
what it was.
Fuck, man.
He knew who you were.
And then I scared the shit out of this old lady on a train. And that was the thing on the train station is like this society teaches them to where it's like there's rules. Like, okay, if there's a woman with kids, you give up your seat. If somebody's handicapped, you give up your seat. Or if it's an old elderly person, you give up your seat. Which I'm like, oh, I'm all about these fucking
Yeah.
rules. Why don't we do that here? Fucking A.
Yeah.
Right.
'Cause
But
Americans suck.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. So I fucking go, and there's this old lady came in, and the train was packed, and I was like, no, I'm gonna give her my seat. So I stood up, and I go up to her, and like I say sumimasen, which means like sorry or excuse me. I was like sumimasen, and Japanese don't really like to be physically touched that much.
You fucked up.
Like they're very, very nice, and like they'll shake your hand. They're super, super friendly, but they don't like to really be touched. So I lightly tapped her on the shoulder, and you would have thought I'd try to like stick something up her ass because she was just like like she flipped the fuck out. I was like blah, blah, blah. So everybody's looking at me, this giant
God
white dude
damn.
with tattoos on a train, and I was like no, sit, and then she like looked back and forth. He's like, oh, okay. And like I just like bowed and like went back. And then before she left to get off her stop, because I stayed a little longer on the train to get to where I needed to go, she actually came up like touched. I had no idea what she told me, but I would like to say that it was like, oh, thank you. It could have been like, you scared the fuck out of me. Fuck you. And she walked off, but she seemed nice about it. So it was what it was. But yeah, a lot of crazy shit. And like, you know, when it comes to drinking, man, like they, you know, like when it comes to like public intoxication, like it's downlooked here in the U.S. Like you'll get a fucking ticket, you know, people will like pull out their phones and be like, oh, look at this fucking dipshit, like throwing up. I saw so many people throw up on the streets of Japan and everybody partying because people look at it because working, like they actually have a suicide hotline for like people that work too much. Like people literally die of exhaustion from working their job so much because they take so much pride in what they do for a living. So when people
sleeping on the job is not frowned upon.
Oh, no.
That just means that you're working so hard that you fell asleep while you were working.
So same thing with drinking. They look at it like, oh, they're celebrating. He's having a good time. He must have worked real hard. They need to go out and get drunk. And they're not like, some get loud and stuff like that, but like nowhere near here in the United States where like you'll see people have a conversation. They're just like yelling.
They say,
but like,
we're
like
loud.
you'll
Bunch of
have
fucking chads out there.
You're right. You'll have guys, you'll have kids, and their buddies are just laughing at them. They're puking their fucking guts out on the street.
It's
But
hilarious. Why
no
wouldn't
one,
you laugh?
no one looks at it.
So
or you'll see guys belligerently dude, like stumbling across the road and they're pissed fucking drunk, but no one does anything.
So it's
'Cause
like
they're
Griffs.
oh, he's having a good time. Dude, Griffs would fucking kill in Japan.
Hell yeah.
Would fucking kill in Japan, man. But that's the thing.
crazy.
But what they do, here's the funny thing about the Japanese too, is that like when it comes to their way of living, they take a lot of pride in it. So they'll talk about the money that they make to support their family, because as far as like the financial brackets in the Japanese like society and economy, not a lot of people really make too much different amount of money. You know what I mean? Like you basically have like one giant middle class, very little poverty, and very little like top 1%ers, right? And they'll tell you like, oh yeah, you know, I make this much, this, that, whatever. But like if you talk about what you do for a living, it comes off as bragging. As the opposite here.
Wow.
I'll tell you what I do for a living all day long,
yeah.
right? Like as a job.
Yeah,
but if I sit there and
crazy.
somebody goes, well, how much do you make? Everybody here in the U.S. is like, oh, I don't want to talk about that, because that's like a sign of like bragging. Like if I make, I make $225 a year, you know, this, that, whatever. Be like, oh, this guy, you know, right? But they don't look at it like that, because they're just like, hey man, it doesn't matter. And they take like, they love their fucking job. Like it's like, I support my family with this. I do this, like, and that was also a thing with like wrestling too. Like the training there was phenomenal, because they like, it wasn't just something that they did as far as like a hobby or something they do on the side. It was like, no, this is what I do for a living. Like they clean the ring like if they were making their bed like at their house. And like there would be, after each training session I'd do, we'd get down on our knees in a circle and like silence and like bow to each other and like say, hey, thank you for being safe with me today. Even though we'd like beat the shit out of each other in wrestling, it's like, hey, thank you so much. This, that, would like, it was an honor and respect thing. Like it was just second to none. And it was just like, man, like to me, like that was all about passion for just like, not only just like wrestling, but for fucking anything you do. And like, once again, it made me really grateful for what we have in the States. Cause like, dude, we don't even think about it, man. Like we're just, dude, we're four dudes sitting around doing what we love, sitting there talking podcasts and shooting the shit, drinking beer. And like, man, like a lot of people don't really get to do that. And it's fucking cool to me. You know what I mean? So like, and they take a lot of pride in their shit. So it's rad.
That's fucking awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Not trying to get all Tony Robbins and shit on you.
No, that's cool. I've always said for a long time, I admire the Japanese culture a lot.
It's cool, man.
Which is why I have a lot of Japanese themed tattoos. But
absolutely.
They straight up will tell you if there's something wrong with you, like don't take. But here, people be finding it really offensive, and in truth, they're just trying to help you out. Like just hey, don't do that. Don't be fucking stupid. Blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely, right.
It's the complete opposite. It's amazing. Yeah. I love that too.
Yeah,
that shit wouldn't fly here though.
Yeah, for
Fuck
sure.
No.
Well, that's
listening to our conversation.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the whole thing about the Japanese culture. It's very, be prideful of your culture, of your people. And in America, sad to say, it's more selfish. It's more like, I'm going to look out for myself and look out for number one, like, and do this, and like. We could learn a lot from them, and especially like being the way that they treat people, like just in general, it is I think a much I take a lot away from it. I try to do that for the most part, except with these fucking guys.
Yeah, I know.
Well, cool.
It's all good. It's all good, man. It's all balanced, man. So, but there's good and bad, man. They're very passive aggressive on stuff. They're not like. Like people like again the East Coast in the U.S. They'll just tell you what to think. Like, hey, you a fucking asshole. Fuck you.
Exactly.
Like the Japanese won't do that. They'll just be like, they'll be silent. They'll just nod their head and just walk away. Like that's their way of saying go fuck yourself.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying?
Shit.
In most cases
Efficient.
too. You know what I mean? Right. Exactly. So I mean, like I said, there's good and bad. But like when I was there, I think like the last 2 weeks I was there, I was left by myself. So like all the different foreign wrestlers were gone, and I could not fucking wait to get back home. I'm like cheeseburgers, football. I'm fucking ready.
XFL.
XFL
Roughnecks, yeah, baby.
So
yeah, man.
switching back off of wrestling,
Yeah.
we did. We were involved with a what was that thing that we did with the I Am Geek that they?
Oh, it was a freaking,
The battle royale,
battle royale
with cheese.
Yeah,
I really feel like that needs better marketing, because it's a really interesting concept. I mean, I feel like we got shafted. I feel like they purposely picked a really hard questions for us the first round. But
explain the concept of it. It's like
so
Jeopardy.
If we have some content, do we have any content?
We have a little bit, but the audio was it's a little high on the gain side.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, we kind of threw it together at the last minute, but so basically the concept is it's tournament style brackets, and it was head-to-head podcast head-to-head. So it was us versus another podcast, and it was Jeopardy style questions, and it was 5 categories, point values, and you go through and you answer, give me, Marvel superheroes for 500. Yeah. You answer the question. If you get that question right, you win a character, whatever the character is for that square. And then at the end of the round, you have, so many characters, and then you have to debate battle character versus character against the other podcast. So
we had Woody on one.
We had Woody from Toy Story, and who was our other character that we ended up with?
No, the other guys had
No.
Oh, we had Woody, and then we had Ethan Hawke, I think. Or
no. Yeah, Ethan Hawke from Mission Impossible.
No, not Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hunt. Sorry,
Ethan Hunt. Yeah, there you go. Ethan Hunt. Those were our 2 characters that we ended up with, and the other team had Goku and.
Fuck if I don't remember.
It doesn't matter because I successfully defended Woody from Toy Story against Goku.
And we won. Yeah, Woody won.
We won that round.
No shit.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
So that's just
Right
a testament. Hey, I also successful defended the prequel trilogies of Star Wars against the original trilogy of Star Wars in a very similar battle.
Them.
Exactly.
You hate those too.
Anyway, just let you guys know what we've been up to the last couple of weeks. So the best part about that was sitting next to Randy and Brandon from Cult 45 and heckling everybody while they were on stage. That was the funnest thing that I've done in a long time.
I think
I wish I was there.
I think Rob took the reins of being Paul for that night. And he was the heckler.
I had a lot to drink, and Brandon was egging me on.
Yeah.
So Brandon was he started it, and then I was like, well, there's nothing but I mean, they wanted an audience in there, but I mean, it ended up being just nothing but podcasters in the room. So, but it was a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun heckling everybody, and
Heckling's the fucking best.
I'm
man.
looking forward to doing it at Comic Palooza again. Also,
oh yeah, for sure. But going back to the wrestling aspect, and speaking of heckling, okay, you've been in around the biz for a while.
Yeah.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer being a face,
brother?
or
I
heel?
love being. If I ain't bad, it ain't right, bro.
Yeah.
if I ain't bad, it ain't right, man. The badder,
Nice.
the better, man. I mean, and don't get me wrong. Like being cheered and shit is cool. I mean, everybody loves to get cheered, man. I mean, that's just human nature. But at the same time, just like pissing somebody off is just like. Man, it's such a giant wrestling boner for me. You have no idea.
Well, it's got to be like it's totally out of character. So I mean, it's got to be like you're
playing on it.
Yeah, you play on it, and like you get to play out all these things that you're like, man, I would never do this or say this, but I'm gonna fucking say
no
it
consequences.
Right now.
Fuck it, it's just a role.
Yeah.
I mean,
once again, I think both sides is good, and like some people will say like the bad guy side's the easiest side, and I mean, yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, but really, I feel like if you put enough time into your craft, I mean, you can kind of figure your shit out.
The bad guy always becomes the favorite or the good guy.
Yeah,
That's
the bad thing with wrestling these days is that like everybody tries to be like the badass, and then the badass turns cool and this, that, whatever, and then you have a lot of people, because once again, there's a lot more of the insides that are exposed to wrestling where people are like, oh, I know what he's doing, I respect that, this, that, whatever. For me, like I get a lot of that too, but also like I'm very old school and brought up to where it's like I do some flashy things maneuver-wise, and I can do stuff, and I show my athleticism, but there's other things where it's like, I'm so set in ways to where it's like, I just want to do my fucking job. Like, if I'm supposed to come out here and people aren't supposed to like me, then this is exactly what I'm going to do. I mean, and I've had the worst of the worst. I've had batteries thrown at me. I've had balls thrown at me. I've had a guy. I've had a guy when I wrestled in Oklahoma pull a knife out at me. Yeah, no, legit.
Bruiser
like,
Brody style?
Yeah, I'm not trying to sound like. I'm not trying to sound like.
Hey, that's how you know how good of a job you're doing. They put knives at you.
No, for sure.
Take it for real.
I don't want to get fucking stabbed. Though.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, that's how good of a job you're playing on your role. You know?
Yeah.
I got a Marvel question too later on. Everything I've been hearing people have been petitioning about Brie Larson for Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
or some shit.
I think I know where you're going.
I don't know what's going on.
I know
with
where
that,
you're going
but
with it. We'll
just,
go to
just
anyway.
sidetrack. But anyways, back to the bad guy shit. Yeah, it's fucking cool, man. Like I don't
look at The Rock. You
like,
remember The Rock was the bad guy. He's like he was a good.
Well,
guy.
he was the face
Rocky
first.
Myers.
In '96 Survivor Series.
Yeah,
But see,
then he didn't get any traction until he started acting like the cocky asshole.
what was
Right.
what
The fans
was
turned
he
on
in?
him.
He was on
Nation of Domination.
Not Nation of Domination.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah,
there we go.
Hell yeah, man! It was good.
And then
Loved it,
what
loved
part
it.
of the what's
Domination.
the Vince McMahon one? The corporation.
Oh, that was the corporation.
He was part of the
yeah.
corporation too. I think.
Yeah, he was. That's when he was like the people's champ and all that other
exactly.
shit. No,
exactly.
dude, that wrestling back
the
there,
People's
like
champ, that was great.
Yeah,
dude.
I grew up on
Jesus.
all that stuff,
Yeah,
man.
that
I
was so
love,
good.
I love that stuff. There's only like today's wrestling is like such a night and day difference, and a lot of it's very good, and it's way more like athletically based. Like, dude, the type of stuff that like guys and girls can do today is unfucking believable. But sometimes it's like way too much. Like, for instance, like the Super Bowl halftime show, like J-Lo and Shakira, like it was good, but it was like somebody gave me like an acid tab and be like, all right, let's watch these like old hot ass broads flip around.
I didn't
like, I
watch
was just
it.
like, it was just overstimulation. And sometimes like that's the way wrestling is. Like wrestling got built on like storytelling and moments and shit. And
Yeah,
I'm
it
not
doesn't. I feel like it doesn't have that.
Right.
anymore.
I'm not sitting there work a headlock for like 10 fucking minutes. Like, you have to spice things up, but a lot of guys and girls, they'll just go out there and just, move A, move C, move F, move D, move whatever. And they're just going out there and doing moves, and they're not telling a fucking story. And they think they are, because they're like, oh, if I work this body part, I'm telling a story. Like, no, like Romeo and Juliet, motherfucker,
Well, okay,
like Shakespeare.
nice. Let me
like,
ask you
There you
this.
go.
good versus evil. That's all that shit is, man. Quit overcomplicating
Let
it,
me ask
know
you
what I mean?
this then.
Nice.
You come home drunk as fuck, and you pop
Hell
on the
yeah.
WWE network.
Hell yeah.
What era are you going to put on?
So I'll tell you this right now. Just like what we just talked about, I like to put on shit that I grew up loving, and I'm not saying it's like that's the best wrestling ever. It's just the shit that's got me into it. Me personally is like, I want to be invested into what you're fucking doing. Like, the wrestling to me is like secondary on the fact of like when I was a kid, or I was a lot younger, man. I first got into wrestling, man. Like, I was fucking obsessed with Cactus Jack versus Triple H.
Dude, there were so
Like,
you know what it is? I thought about this the other day.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what it was from back in the day that made wrestling great? And you have a hard time like finding the pulse of like what it was. It was great storytelling outside of the ring, but inside of the ring also. But it was all of that linked to their personalities and how
Right.
different they were,
Yeah.
and their intro music.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
nobody has like when I was at Royal Rumble, I noticed nobody has like really good intro music. I went back and watched some old matches on YouTube and stuff like that after that, and I still get goosebumps when like you get the surprise of like The Rock's intro music comes on.
Yeah.
When you get that, if you smell, like
Right.
you're just like, whoo, like it's gonna be fucking fun.
That's always
You know what I
an
mean?
argument between like the guys back then and the guys now, because there's so much more structure into WWE and a lot of the main play wrestling that a lot of things are a lot more scripted and a lot more like, all right, you have to sell this promo verbatim and shit. Back then with The Rock and everything like that, they're like, they just gave you guidelines, like footnotes, like, hey, you're going to talk about this pay-per-view, this, that, whatever, do this and just do your shit. And there was a lot more freedom back then. So that's
Remember when Stone Cold backed that beer truck up to the ring?
Oh,
and,
that
like,
shit was rad. That shit was rad.
I don't remember
that. Shit,
that.
all that stuff was like super cool. But like, don't get me wrong. There's so many positives in pro wrestling today, and there's way more money in pro wrestling today and syndication and stuff like that. But like for me, like I just like watching like stuff that I like growing up on, and I love the current product too. So like I love like watching like NXT today. Like they have like a lot of good wrestling talent and like just some really good like snug, crisp stuff for me, which is like the crisp means like fair, like very well executed as far as like maneuvers, timing, moments and stuff. But like I personally think my personal taste in wrestling, I think the best pro wrestling on the planet is from Japan. New Japan Pro Wrestling, All Japan Pro Wrestling, things like that, because they make it more like a sport. Like, for instance, like when you watch a WWE match, or most matches in the States, you'll have guys that go knockout, drag out, and they'll look tired and exhausted, but they're most likely slapping hands. They're doing their stance at the end.
Yes.
Things of that nature. In Japan, like they treat it like an MMA fight. Like, they'll go into the match like looking fresh, okay, cool, whatever, pantomiming to the crowd, but at the end of it, they're both laying down and they have people rushing into the ring with ice packs like all over their neck, their face, because they landed on their fucking head like 9 times, and things like that. But it's legit more of like a sport to where it's like, man, these guys beat the shit out of each other. Because if you watch UFC, these guys, like, regardless if it's a 30-second fight and a guy got knocked down, he got caught, you got trainers rushing in there. Let me check your face. Let me put oil on you. Let me cover up this cut, this, that, whatever. And I wish wrestling was more like that, you know, to where it got treated a little more like a sport. Don't get me wrong, the entertainment part of it to me is still great. Like, you got to have those promos, you got to have those segments and you know, and all those other different, the pageantry. But I want, like, man, if Roman Reigns is fighting Drew McIntyre, I don't want those motherfuckers shaking hands at the end of the match. Just talking surely from a fan. Yeah. Like, y'all can go do that in the back. Like, I want to see two grown-ass men fight, because it's like a circus. Like,
exactly.
You pay for the strong men. You see beautiful women. You see, you know, you see the animals, the trapeze artists, things like that. But at the end of the day, what's always the main event? The fucking lions for a circus. It's taming the lions, right? Exactly. And you're always hoping in the back of your mind, like, man, what if that guy gets eaten by a fucking lion? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
That's not number one.
Like, yeah, like things like that. You know what I mean? So, like, wrestling's like the same way. Like, there's always, you have to cater, and there's different fans, because not every fan's going to like the same shit I like, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, like, the main money drawers, like, that's where the big fight atmosphere happens. Like, people can disagree with it or not, but, like, that's why Brock Lesnar is where he's at, is because he's the most believable guy.
Exactly.
He's the most believable guy, to where it's like, okay, I know this is pro wrestling, okay, whatever, but Brock Lesnar can fuck up anybody, right? Exactly. And I think that's the thing. Perception's reality. And I think there's more of that. And then on different levels of wrestling, it just, to me, the more believable something can be. And don't get me wrong, entertainment's great. Like, I love seeing metaphorical, like, ass grenades and everybody takes a bump. You know, like, there's definitely room for that. I don't knock any genre of wrestling, but, like, for me, my perspective is like, where the money's at, the main stage level of wrestling, like, that's where your big fight atmosphere comes from. And that's the shit I like.
So one thing that I noticed at Royal Rumble, and I keep going back to this because it's the only wrestling thing that I've seen lately, but Roman was in, like, the first main match of the night.
Yeah.
And like, he was like, that was a fucking knockdown, drag out match. They were all over the fucking place. And then he came back for the Royal Rumble like nothing happened.
Right.
Like, I don't think that I'd ever seen that. Like, when I was watching wrestling, like, you didn't get a match and then the Royal Rumble, like, you
right.
Was there? I mean, because to me, I was like, Roman's coming back in, like, he's.
But
out,
you're not.
like,
you're not.
Do
you're
love
not wrong.
Mankind and Cactus Jack.
Yeah,
Right.
that was my favorite Royal Rumble. He got knocked out all the times. I
ones.
couldn't stop fucking laughing, man.
Mick Foley, like, oh my god, that guy,
great guy, man, awesome dude. But no, I agree with you to where it's like, it usually, like, to back up what Jake said, like that usually doesn't happen, and things of that nature. And once again, I mean, like, we could talk about, like, the schematics of things and stuff like that. And once again, like, pro wrestling's like just another, like, and this might sound like an oxymoron, but it's like a realer version of make believe, I guess, right? But it's just one of those things where it's like, I get with you. Like, there's always going to be, like, little nuances that'll kind of take you away from it and what have you. But at the end of the day, like, pro wrestling is, like, very subjective. It's like art. Like, that's why, like, a lot of arguments in my mind are just kind of like, when people argue about shit, like, on Twitter, it's really pointless, because it's just really all your perspective. Right. Like, you can't really actually say that, like, this is the absolute best. It's your perspective of what's the best.
We all have different
right
views and shit.
And everything like that. So I think as long as people enjoy it and, like, be respectful to the most part of other people's, like, perspectives, then, like, cool. But, like, also at the same time, man, like, if something looks like shit and smells like shit, it's probably shit too. So they should probably get called out on that too. You know what I mean?
Let's also talk about, like, okay, so wrestling just. Okay, it's technique. You got to know what the hell you're doing in the ring, right?
Yeah.
But it's also about the promos that you shoot.
Yeah, for sure.
And that kind of draws in the crowd. And, like, when you go into that ring, you hold that mic. It's like you're stirring the shit on the with the crowd.
You have to, yeah, you have to. I
like that y'all are doing promos, like backstage promos, like the one that you posted the other day. With,
yeah,
like, that's like classic WWF style. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's a two-taker, man. Well, going back to, like, social media and, like, the power of this, and we all know how powerful it is, man. Like, you got to have to put out as much content as as much content as you possibly can, but not like completely whore it out, because then you'll just numb people's minds. Like, you always want to, like, trying to keep a variety of things going, you know what I mean? And with that promo, what I like to do is, like, a bad guy, and this just worked for me. I didn't really have the best childhood growing up, and I know what it's like to be bullied. So I just take my experiences and I just try and project that to where I literally look at it like, all right, what would piss me off if I saw it on TV?
There you go.
Within reason. Like, what would fucking make me mad? Like, what would be like, man, this guy's a douchebag, right?
Nice.
That's what I try and be. Ruthless Ryan Davidson, as far as, like, a wrestler and stuff, like I guess you would call me basically like a tweener, to where I've been doing this so long to where people respect me because of what I've done and where I've been and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, if my job is to be a heel, like, yeah, you could think that I'm a nice guy, but I'm gonna hit a nerve with you somehow. Like, I'm gonna remind you of that bully that pushed you up against the locker back in like 8th grade. You know what I'm saying? For no fucking reason.
I can do that.
You know what I mean?
Real easy.
You know what I'm saying? So like, it's stuff like that, and I think that's also what it is too, to where it's like, when you're involved in wrestling, like, you have to keep your ear to the ground on all like the different, like, you know, pop culture and what people can relate to, and project that into wrestling, because that's what's going to get you, you know, going to get over. It's not necessarily all about like what you like. It's what you can kind of give the fans, because that's the people that are buying the ticket, right? You hear that shit all the time, but a lot of people just like don't go in depth into the shit. But like with me, like, I just try and, you know, once again, if my job is to piss somebody off, well, what would piss me off if I was on the street? Yeah. You know what I mean? And how would I put that into pro wrestling realms, and vice versa, you know, as far as being good. But, you know, with promos and stuff, man, all that shit's practice, dude. Yeah, because I know so many people that are great wrestlers, but you put a microphone in their face and they're like, Ricky Bobby, like, I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's
what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, from what you said, that's really good motivation, because like, I mean, it's basically acting is what you're doing.
That's all it is, man.
And you know, that's the way you look and the way you handle it. That's perfect.
Yeah, man.
That's good. You have something going good for you.
It's just
brings
reps,
it out.
man. Yeah, man.
You.
It's just reps, like anything in fucking life, you know. And some guys and girls are going to be great at it at the start, because like, that's the thing though too. Like, when people like start off in wrestling, are really like, dude, no one's going to come out like the fucking womb like AJ Styles or Kurt Angle or like some shit like they're Brock Lesnar or some shit like that. You know what I mean? So like, you have to
shitty. You have to work your
practice
way up,
it.
Man.
And there's some things that you're going to naturally be good at. Like there's some people that I know that like, they're naturally great talkers. They're very charismatic. And then other people are like super duper athletic, but they can't put sentences together. You have to work on it, accentuate your positive, hide your negatives, and that just goes to life, dude. Like, fucking, you know, notice your positives, stick with it, but also work on those fucking negatives too, to where they're not really negatives anymore, and then you just keep going, you know.
So my question is, when is Reality of Wrestling bringing in the table, ladders, and chairs match?
They already did. They already did, bro. Lucha Extrema. I think the last one was fucking Gino and Aiden Cristiano, and dude, that fucking match was crazy, man. They called it Lucha Extrema, but it was basically tables, ladders, and chairs, and they did a lot of extreme stuff. Gino just signed with MLW. He's doing awesome, and Aiden Cristiano, like we were talking about earlier, talent goaler all around the world. He's doing his tour for CMLL, which is like the biggest company in Mexico. Like he went ahead, he's there. So like, we got a crap load of talent.
I think you should do the title match where they suspend the belt from the middle of the ring and fucking go at it.
Dude, I did one of my favorite matches I ever did. It was so fucking obnoxious, but I did what's called a trick or treat match around Halloween. So basically what a trick or treat match was, I stole it from this guy when I was wrestling in Oklahoma back in the day, and basically there's like 4 boxes, like a box in each corner of the ring, and like you fight around. The object is like to open up each box, but like in one box there might be like the equalizer, like a gimmick, like brass knuckles or a pipe or some shit that you can totally beat the shit out of your opponent with. But like other boxes will have like random shit, like, you know, if it's a good guy, like this box will have like candy and throw candy to the fucking crowd, and this one will have like a gag gimmick to where it's like a fucking rubber chicken or some shit.
Big rubber dick.
Yeah, a rubber dick. If it's an adult show, I actually seen a dildo on a pole match at an adult show. I swear to God, it was in Colorado Springs, Colorado, for an old organization. They had a dildo on a pole match. It was an adult show.
There's a lucky gift for a lucky fan.
Fucking hilarious. But yeah, I did this trick or treat one, and I remember there was one box. I filled it up with toilet paper, and my opponent's like, "What the fuck are you doing that for?" And I'm like, "Well, I just watched the movie Platoon." And so, like, you know how what's his fucking face? Oh my God, the guy that played Green Goblin. What's his fucking
Willem Dafoe.
William Dafoe. Thank you. He, you know, the famous scene where he's on his knees, he's getting shot up, and they're flying away, and he just dies in Nam and shit.
Spoiler.
I'm like, exactly, spoiler. I was like, how can I reincarnate that into pro wrestling? So, like, as being the bad guy, I get hit, and you know, we talked about it in the back. Spoiler alert, predetermined. And I told my opponent, I'm like, pass out toilet paper to everybody and just have it, like, count it down and have everybody chunk toilet paper at me, and I'm gonna do the Platoon shit in the middle of the fucking ring. Sure as shit, dude. There were so many kids there, so like, you have to know your audience. So like, the show we were at was very kid friendly. So we're like, if I was a kid, what the fuck would I like to do? Hell yeah, I want to throw toilet paper at this guy that's being a douchebag. Like,
did you get your muffler out?
That's a great story. I didn't tell you that. But no, like, I sat there and they were like 3, 2, 1, and the fucking toilet paper came, and I'm just fucking all gyrating.
That's
like a dick, and I'm just like, man, this shit's so funny, man. But no, we've had tables, letters, and chairs matches at Row. Cage matches, God, I've done like 20 of them.
Yeah,
I'm not even joking, like 20 ladder matches and shit. I think the worst thing.
Aren't you gonna have one coming up? Maybe.
No, the only God, I fucking hope not.
No, maybe not. Maybe not.
No, I fucking no. I have an 8-man tag tomorrow night where I'm wrestling against Booker and Brian Keith and Fly
Brian
Death.
Keith was the first one,
right?
That was
and
still
then
cage, that's right.
Yeah, and then
so tell us what that's about. Like, how do you feel about that? Like wrestling against your mentor.
It's fucking cool. So this is.
And what does it take to get Booker T back in the fucking ring? Man?
I'll tell you exactly what it was. Inside scoop. Book got in really good shape, thinking he was going to get used for the Rumble, and then the Rumble didn't happen because WWE, what they'll do is like right at the last moment. Like Booker T always says this, and this is totally true, that the only luck you'll ever have in pro wrestling is your preparation. That's the only luck you'll ever have. You have to fucking stay ready at all times.
Because they left 3 slots of the Rumble unannounced.
Right.
And so it was kind of up in the air. Edge was the big, like, woo. Like,
yeah, right. So Book, like, dude, he's always been in great shape. I mean, dude, the guy's like fucking 54 years old.
Yeah,
and dude, like he looks like he's like barely 40. Right. And he's got a great physique and everything like that. So he was training like, man, these guys might pick me on the Rumble, which means, send me that fucking paycheck in the mail. You know what I mean? Like, that's what he's thinking.
That'd be fucking great.
Right.
Like,
so, but he never got that. He never got that call for Royal Rumble.
Man,
he's just doing his own thing.
That'd have been fucking
right.
awesome.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things. But he was like, well, shit, I'm in good shape. I look good. Fuck, I feel good. Well, fuck, let me get in this fucking ring real quick. So I had the higher ups of Row let me know that, like, hey, Book's going to be in this match. But not only is he going to be in this match, but he's going to wrestle as G.I. Bro, which is like an old gimmick he did back in his independent days, and even did it in WCW for like 1 or 2 times. And it basically is like he's a giant G.I. Joe, like military fatigues, this, that, whatever, because that was like an old gimmick. G.I. Bro, man. This is like world class, like total stuff, like GWF shit back in the 80s and shit. Yeah. And it's cool because people are marking out because it's like, oh, this is like an alter ego that Book hasn't done in like 20 something fucking years. So like, and this was kind of like what kind of spearheaded me for getting into Sports Illustrated and stuff like that, because everybody was biting on this, and then Book talking about me and talking about the situation, which was really, really cool. But getting in the ring with a mentor is awesome, man. I think of it like if I was playing football and I grew up watching like John Elway or Peyton Manning, and then next thing you know, I'm like looking across the line of scrimmage and I'm playing against them.
Right, yeah.
Like it's kind of like the same thing. Or if you like grew up listening to like, I don't know, like you grew up listening to any kind of like famous musician or whatever, then you're singing a duet. It's kind of like the same thing. I've had a match with Booker before. It was Booker and Samoa Joe versus me. Yeah, versus me and another guy named The Pride. And not a gay gimmick, by the way.
That's not what I thought about the first time you said that. Either.
A lot of people think that. They're like, the
conditioning has begun,
like,
gentlemen.
Yeah, I know. They're like, oh, is that a gay gimmick? I'm like, no. So I have to stress that out, a little footnote. But we had this tag match, but it was a while ago, and it was really cool. And getting the fact that I get in the ring with Book again is pretty sweet, man. Like it's not every day you get in the ring with a 2-time Hall of Famer. And Book likes to we like to call it being snug, which means he really likes to lay it in when it comes to strikes. Like you always want to hit in a safe place because there's always contact in wrestling, but like he'll hit you really hard,
yeah.
Right? So and then he likes to get hit hard back. So I can't wait to like beat him up. It's gonna be so fun.
So to piggy off that, you're fighting against wrestlers, and they may have the jitters, and they may get you with a really good one. How often? And you don't have to answer this, but how often do you give out receipts?
Man, it's happened quite a few times, and I will say this: in pro wrestling, there is no expiration date on a receipt. So a motherfucker could do something, and you can be like, "Oh, all right," and then like 6 months down the line, you can just pow, and they'll be like, "Oh man, what was that?" I'd be like, "Remember that one time?" Oh, all right, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I think that's like old school, like into where like there's not really a lot of that going on because everybody, for the most part, primarily gets along in pro wrestling. Like they're not all like best friends, but it's like coworkers at work. You know what I mean? It's like, we all get along, this, that, whatever. But if you found out Johnny like ate your fucking Quest bar that you've left in the fridge, then you better believe
he's walking out of the shitter.
You better believe I'm gonna go wipe his nuts on his mouse at his desk or some shit. You know what I mean? Like something like that. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the equivalent. Like we never want to go out there and like really like fuck a guy up and like shit like that. shit like that happens, and like there's a
But
lot
does
of
that
old school shit.
does that happen?
No, dude, it has. Like, it really, really has. Like I
where
can't.
you get some beef with somebody and like you get in the ring and that you don't know, and like they're just like they're not pulling punches and like
no, and some guys really just don't know any better. Like, and that's because the thing though too is like communication's real big. So like if a guy or a girl's like really fucking up somebody and really laying it in, you kind of need to let them know, like, yo, man, like chill out, like lighten up, like everything's all right. But like some people, like you wouldn't believe, like, and once again, I can talk about this forever, but like in a world of predetermined events, people actually develop these real life egos over this. And it's funny to where it's like, you know, everybody puts their ego into it. Like, you don't need to tell me what to do. Where the fuck have you been? Like this, that, whatever. And it gets to really be annoying because everybody thinks they have it figured out.
Behind the scenes, they're like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
but like some people, not all people, but some people can get like that because unfortunately a lot of people will look at it, it's like, oh, it's not like it's talent over tenure. It's like all about what you've done. Like how good is your last at bat? Right. So like I could be saying the exact same thing that Booker T will say, but since it's Booker T and he's a 2-time Hall of Famer and I'm not a Hall of Fame anything at the moment, you know, it's one of those things where like obviously people are going to take his opinion over mine, which is something I totally get. But also at the same time, it can really be a nuisance to where it's like if you're more experienced and you have more experience in your nervous system and you've paid that dummy tax and you're trying to tell that younger talent, hey, you know, try and watch out for that or don't do that. And they'll look at you like, who the fuck do you know? I've been doing this and everybody tells me I'm great at all these other areas and you're telling me that I've been sucking, so it must be you, asshole. You know, then you're just like, all right, dude, whatever, and you just let it be. But there are times where like guys, like they'll get overzealous or they'll try and take advantage and stuff. But those are rare occasions, man, but they do happen. The best thing I can tell anybody to prevent something like that is I don't know, fucking be a man and protect yourself. You know what I mean? Like handle your business. Like be a pro at all times, you know? Even when somebody's not being that professional, like be a pro. But like there's you know, back in the day there was a lot of like tough guys in the business to where it's like if they had a problem, like instead of talking it out like how we would in 2020, they'd be like, yo man, let's go step outside real quick. Yeah. Then it's handled like, yeah, all right, cool. And then you move on with your day. It's not really like that anymore, which is good and bad, but shit like that does happen, man, from time to time.
I know you have another question, but I have a super, like, has it ever happened, and it doesn't necessarily to you, but I'm sure that it's probably happened to people that you know, where you get you're prepping for your match, you get the match results, you're like, okay, here's your match, here's the match results, you know, do this, whatever, and then this is what the ending is, and you're in the match with the guy, and the guy on the other end of the match is just like, no, this match is not going down that way. Like, I'm winning this match instead of you.
Yeah,
and you have to be like, what the fuck are you doing? And they just like, I don't care. Like, I'm winning this match.
Yeah, so basically, it has happened before.
I'm just saying, like,
no,
I know that's
that's
you know,
right. Going off story.
There's a lot of adrenaline, there's a lot of testosterone, a lot of steroids.
I'm going over you. Yeah.
So like a last minute type situation, maybe.
I'm talking like in the ring, like
that's what I mean. Yeah, like right then and there.
So to answer that question, that has happened. I can tell you it never ended good.
I can imagine it's
to where stuff like that would get handled in the back or anything like that, and it really just depends on the situation. But what I can say is that the more stuff that I've been involved in, real lot like younger in my career, because like younger in my career, like back in like the mid 2000s, like it was still a lot of that old school mentality to where like if a guy didn't want to do the job, as we say, or do the favor or whatever, then they'll like perform at a really low level, so they'll like barely do anything, or they're like, whatever, let me just get through this bullshit and get in the fucking back and get the fuck out of here because this is dumb and I'm not whatever. But once again, guys and girls like that, they never last long. They never do. So things like that happen. But I mean, also other things too, to where it's like, and this happens more than it should, but like, you know, what we do is fucking physical, man. So motherfuckers get hurt all the time. So there's been plenty of times to where like I'm trying to have a match with a guy and next thing you know, he steps up on the rope to like jump off, but he slips, lands on the back of his head, and he can't move for like 5 minutes. Like that's happened, like legitimately happened to me.
Stone Cold and Owen Hart,
right? And I can't touch him, so it's like, well, fuck, what do you do? And then you're worried about him, and then you got an audience that's around and stuff like that. So people get hurt. So to answer your question, man, like there's really no like set like, hey, here's a syllabus for how we need to figure out this situation.
Yeah, it's like a protocol or anything like that.
It's really the best thing that I could say is that when something like that does happen, you just try and end the match as fast as you possibly can, in any way, shape, or form. And sometimes, man, matches just get thrown out, and then they later get explained depending on what kind of platform you're on. If you're on TV, or if you do a once-a-month thing or whatever, really all that just kind of depends. But I can say that a lot of times things do get flipped on the script, and you kind of have to be thinking on your feet. And some guys and girls can handle it. It really just comes down to experience. I've personally, from my memory, never had somebody that was like, I'm not fucking doing that, type of shit. Like they'll say it in the back and they'll bitch about it and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, they go out and fucking do it. But once again, they'll go out and do it, and then they'll do it very, very like shittily. But they'll be the shits. They'll put as less effort as they can in this situation, then roll out and then have the poo-poo face. But once again, they do not last, because at the end of the day, you got to be a pro, and that's what this business is, man. It's predetermined. Like,
it's also being a team player at that point. Like, you gotta, you can't always be number one. You gotta be you gotta play your role. Right.
Know your role, pretty much. Some nights you're the quarterback, man. Yeah. Other nights you're the receiver catching the touchdown.
That's the way it is.
Other nights you're hiking the ball. Other nights you're on the bench, and other nights you're giving out water, bro. That's it. Yeah. And I can tell you, the more volume you get in this business, as far as the more shows you do, a night off is like a bonus. It's not like a punishment. Like, a lot of people think oh, I'm not on the show, that's a punishment. I'm just doing a walk-in, or a run-in, I should say, or I'm just doing commentary. It's no, rest your fucking body, dude.
Well, that's also, having a shitty attitude. If you have that, knowing the business and you explain all that stuff,
doesn't last. You
have to have, like you said, be able to do all those things. Like you said, you might not be doing what you want to do, but in favor for others, you just take a step back and let them do their thing.
No, for sure, man.
You know what my favorite part of a wrestling match is? I'm going to say this because I didn't see it that often at Royal Rumble, but my favorite thing to watch a wrestler do is to run down the entry ramp, and do the slide into the ring, and then pop up.
Hell yeah!
Absolutely. Does that hurt?
Did you ever see that Titus O'Neil, where he ran down? They did this giant rumble. I don't know if you know who Titus O'Neil is. He's this dude. Great guy and all this stuff. He's a good ambassador for WWE. But I think it was a year or two ago, they did this big event out in Saudi Arabia, right? And it was the biggest rumble ever. It had 40, 50 dudes in there. Jesus. And he runs down to the ring. You can look it up on YouTube. And he fucking busts his ass. He hits and slides under the fucking ring because of the baby oil and shit that he's wearing. So he had to get
goddamn
up
baby oil again,
dude. The commentators and everyone were laughing their ass off.
Do y'all practice ring entrances? And
in training.
You figure you've got it. It's a show.
No,
you want to give the audience a good
show
and stuff.
WWE, they definitely do. At the Performance Center, when you're developing your character and stuff like that, they actually have a mock stage set up to where it's let's go over your entrance, because that's the thing. Your entrance, especially WWE Superstar, you do the same thing every week, because once again, you're getting a new viewer every week. There might be somebody who hadn't watched wrestling in forever, so they're not going to might know you by the name, but they might be oh, that's the guy that wears this type of clothes, or oh, that's the girl that twirls her hair when she comes out. So it's little nuances like that. So that's why all entrances are always the fucking same. But as far as getting in and out of the ring, you get trained on that, but sometimes shit just fucking happens, man. A great recommendation for you guys, if you ever want to just fucking die laughing, there's this web series. They have 400 episodes. Damn. It's fucking hilarious. It's called Botchamania. And botch means a fuck up in wrestling, right? So Botchamania is just a compilation of just nothing but wrestling fuck ups. And it's just people busting their ass on moves, or they slip, or they mess up on a promo, or say something.
Leg break and shit.
Oh, dude, all that stuff. I was on a Botchamania.
You were on one? You're on the episode?
Fuck yeah. I think it was episode 163.
Episode 1.
It's got the thumbnail on the YouTube is there's I don't know if you remember the Simpsons episode where
please tell me I would know.
Marge and Lisa and Bart, they're all in the electric chairs and they're all getting buzzed and
that's
shot.
season 1.
Okay, that's season 1. So that's the thumbnail, and it was a match between me and Q.
Okay,
and somebody filmed this in the crowd. Q tried jumping over me as I bent over. He tried hurtling over me, and his fucking foot got caught. This big, muscled up, lean asshole couldn't jump over me when I bent down, and he tripped, fell out of the ring, and landed on the back of his fucking head, and he was knocked out.
Man.
And I'm like, "You okay?" He's like, and we had to wrestle like another 8 minutes.
Man.
So we were on Botchamania. I'm like, "Oh, I made it, man. I'm on Botchamania.
Nice.
This is great." But I highly recommend that to
That's
anybody
like
watching.
that's
It's
like getting a
hilarious.
Weird Al song, you know.
There you go.
Yeah, there you
now
go.
you know you've made it.
No, dude, I love
It's an
Weird
honor.
Al. That shit's great, man. But yeah, no, fuck ups happen, man. You just gotta roll with the punches. Man.
Quick story about Q. One of the last times I remember hanging out with him a few years ago, he was driving. We were going. I think this is for.
We're going to talk
this
about.
This is yes
Yeah, we're going
yes.
to Top
Darius's what's it called bachelor party.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And we're leaving Top Golf. We're going to another bar, and we're walking a long way to his car. And I can't time these things, but I fucking laid one in his car, and it was pretty bad.
Right,
He's
right.
like, man, who fucking busted ass in my car? It's like me.
fought in my
He's
car,
like,
man?
He's like, we've been walking for like 10 minutes. You couldn't done it before. It's like, I can't time these fucking things. And I was like, I can't. It was funny. Like I think we went to Griff's.
And then he whipped out the mysterious Q mask.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
and he slammed me. No, I still remember giving him. I was like, "Hey man, here, I bought him a drink."
Yeah.
And it's like, "Hey man, just keep the change, man. I'm sorry." It's like, "Oh, it's cool, man. I'll buy some Febreze with this now."
Dude, that's the thing. But don't let him fool you. He's shit
cool.
his, bro,
He's
he
cool
shit his
though.
pants plenty of times.
Oh really?
Trust me.
Aha,
Oh, yeah.
Q-tip.
Yeah, he's
Take
he's
that.
done that. He just don't like smelling it. But if it's him, he'll look at you, give you a little smirk, and be like, "Yeah, my bad. Like, I've been eating fish all day, or I'm on this
Take
plant.
that.
I'm on this plant diet. My bad. Oh,
Q-tip
Nasty.
has been renounced.
nasty shit."
Oh man, yeah.
Hey, y'all, tell me about this this Brie Larson petition.
Oh, going back to that.
On
No,
that,
no.
step
See,
off
I heard
wrestling
it
real
on Joe,
quick.
but see, I heard it's satire. I heard it on Rogan's podcast
All
recently.
right, tell me what it is, because you have to you're hinting around it, but I don't know that I know 100% what you're talking about.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't-
from what I heard is there was a petition going around saying that Brie Larson should, because she's like super woke and and all about that.
What do you mean super woke? Hold on.
Well, the woke culture being like, as far as like they say that there's a lot of whitewashing in actors in Hollywood, and there's not enough roles going to minorities, transgenders, gays,
okay,
and
gotcha.
stuff like that.
Right.
And also playing to those people basically.
Oh, okay.
And so there was a petition saying to Brie Larson, basically, is like, if you say that you're basically woke as you are, you should do the honorable thing and step down and give it to the actual
Right.
like source, the actual what's it called,
Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel, which is a gay, I'm sorry, a black transgender woman,
Right.
and you should prove basically of what put your money where your mouth is
Right.
and
Hold
step
on.
down.
The real Miss
Yeah,
Marvel.
no,
Captain Marvel?
I know, but that's the whole point. It's a joke.
Right.
It's satire. It's not real, but
Okay.
it's trying to prove a point to say like they're also calling her out because of her like wokeness and like the things that she's been saying in interviews and feminism too and all that stuff playing a part. A lot of virtue signaling,
Right.
all that stuff, and
Well, that's a whole lot of. I mean, honestly,
that's why it's satire. It's fake, but. I thought it was hilarious.
Well, yeah, because I mean that's that all goes back to the whole Ricky Gervais thing. You know what I mean? It's like
I
you
love
guys are
that.
so fucking disconnected.
Yeah, from the
Nobody
world.
gives a fuck
Yeah.
what you think. Just sit
Yeah.
down and shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Thank
like
you, God.
Brie Larson talking about wokeness and equal rights for people
Right.
and actors and shit like that. The blue-eyed, blonde-haired, gorgeous white woman
Yeah.
who got the role that was, basically she looks exactly like the comic book version of the character.
Right.
Which, I mean, we're pulling from source material here, so I mean, I don't see the problem with it. But I mean, there's plenty of different things that you can do. Joaquin Phoenix the same way. I mean, he did at the what was that?
He's doing it on all platforms.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, every time he gets up, he's like,
yeah.
he's like the nominations for this are disgusting. Like there's way more people that should be nominated for stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I don't disagree with him at all on any front. My only confrontation against that is anybody with a confrontation against it always gets called out as racist or xenophobic or whatever.
Right.
Anybody can.
But you know,
anything
if you're
nowadays.
But that's the whole point. It's like, look, when you're talking about let's just like pan it down and like narrow our scope of view to just like comic book movies. Like if we're talking about comics, honestly, like as a comic fan, like I want the comic book that I read to look the same way on the screen. And I don't.
I'm
if
with
the
you.
the comic book wasn't written that way, like that's fine. There's plenty of other movies
the story
and roles
calls
that,
for it. The story calls
Exactly.
for it. I'm with you on that.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Marvel wrote a role. There's a great comic line of the new Miss Marvel who has completely different powers. Who's an Inhuman, basically in the comics. Kamala Khan, who is who's an Indian. Like you know, and they're actually making a show, a Miss Marvel show for Disney Plus,
Nice,
based on her character.
Yeah, there you go.
So there, I mean, it exists.
Yeah.
Like I think that this, like what Paul's calling this woke culture. You know what I mean? And Paul, it's not Paul calling it that. I mean,
Yeah,
it
it
is
is what it
Damn
is.
it,
It is
Paul.
what it is. You know
No,
what I mean?
it's not me.
Paul.
Hell no. I'm just hearing what I was on.
Yeah, I mean he's just
been
the
listening.
messenger, but
Yeah.
I mean the thing is like the culture's there, and if you look at who is raising the issues with it, it's always the people with like, I don't know a better way, like the white guilt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's always the people.
Yeah.
It's always people that are like, you shouldn't do that because these people are going to be offended, not the people that are offended by it. You know what I mean? There's very rarely is that subculture offended by it.
Yeah,
Right.
they're trying,
It's
they're
usually-
speaking on behalf
Yeah,
of
they're
other
like
people
you
that
should
probably
be
don't
more
give a
sensitive.
shit.
Yeah, those people don't give a shit. Most of them.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
what I
they
mean.
don't.
Like it's at least from like what I've seen, and like correct me if I'm wrong. Everybody's on the internet. Jake, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean that's. I mean I don't know like if that's just what I see from my.
No, you're right
internet
on,
browsing.
man. You're right on. The only thing I can see is that it is those people that are talking about like it's like the white guilt, right? If they want any change, I think that the only way you can put change is if the story calls for it. You don't want to tarnish a story or anything like that. One thing that Joaquin said, and I totally agree, is that it's all going to be the same. It's going to continue on. The only way that it's going to be changed is the people that create the system has to be the same people to dismantle it. And if that's what you want, that's what you want. If that's not what you want, that's not what you want.
Yeah.
And it's just going to continue on. I mean, people are going to bitch about it, and it is what it is.
And that's the whole
fine.
thing. We've talked about it on the podcast before. The thing is that the majority of people in this country, the people that you want to talk about, you want more people of color, more minorities, and you know LGBTQT whatever community. And I'm gonna get butchered for that, but I can't. Whatever.
No,
Man,
you
I
know,
got you.
right.
But you're like 8 beers in, man.
Lot-
Fine.
letters.
I am
Fine.
8 years in. So
Nobody listens.
you know what I mean? Like you get if you want those people, if that's the community that you want, like you make the movies for them. That's and they'll
exactly.
but
Nobody's stopping you
The
from
problem
doing
is
that.
the problem is that big Hollywood studios, if they're going to spend the money, it's a business decision. They're going to spend the money knowing what people are going to pay to go see. Right. And like time and time again, we see like Terminator Dark Fate. You know what I mean? Like we saw that happen with that movie. You know, it was an ultra woke or whatever. You know
Well,
what
I mean,
Yeah.
you know that Chilean miners movie? Would it be okay if there was a bunch of white guys stuck in their mines?
Wait,
Exactly,
it's-
but that's
hold
the
on.
whole thing.
Is that based on the real people?
It was
The
based on
real that happened
But
years
that's
ago?
but that's the whole
With
thing
the
is
the
that
mistress?
it never goes the opposite.
I know that's what I'm trying to say. Like it calls for the story. The story calls for fucking Chilean miners, right?
Yeah.
So you got to get some minorities.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
whole thing. But I
But
think
I guess
that-
from a
but
business
they're
perspective,
okay.
is like who's gonna like the trouble is I guess the unknown. You know, possibly if they, you know, if they get actors that are of that descent.
it's
It's
not
a familiarity
exactly the same, but yeah.
familiarities, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I
the
told
thing-
me like sort of like
No, what I'm trying to say is
No, what he's saying is like if you have you have a film about a bunch
Uh-huh.
of Chilean miners that
Yeah.
happens in Chile,
Yeah.
and you know whatever, and like you're not going to cast a bunch of white
White
guys
people.
in
No,
there
you're not.
or a bunch
Yeah.
of black people in there.
Yeah.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not going to make sense.
Yeah.
because the story called they
see,
were Chilean
that's,
miners.
That's,
like,
that's the funny thing about Hollywood. If you get somebody that doesn't even they don't have to be that race. If they kind of look like them, they that could pass for, like Pablo Escobar,
well-
Cliff Curtis. He's from New Zealand. He is not Colombian.
Blow?
Yeah,
From Blow?
He is not
Yeah.
Colombian at all. But he
there's a lot
he
of-
plays Smiley. He plays a convincing Mexican.
Yeah. Say that
I
Christian
wouldn't
Bale.
thought he was fucking.
Right.
I thought
that
he was
happens all the
Hispanic.
time. I watched.
You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it kind of like it depends, like how far, like how close you can kind of get away. He's not exactly like that.
You know what's the main thing on that though?
but
you know what
see,
I mean?
that I have nothing wrong.
Like,
I don't have a
Ludwig
problem with
Phillips, isn't he
that.
Filipino?
No, you know what the biggest
you know,
offender of this is when they make movies about ancient Egypt. Every Egyptian is usually
Right.
a Mexican
Right.
or a Colombian.
Nah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I
what-
would
so
just
what's
watch The
about
Mummy
that?
Returns earlier today.
Right.
The guy from fucking Billy Zane?
What's his
No,
name?
no, not that.
The,
Billy Zane.
The Imhotep.
Yeah, one
Oh, yeah, he was
The Mummy.
Imhotep. Imhotep.
Billy Zane
yeah,
wasn't
no,
Imhotep.
No, Imhotep. No, that guy,
Yeah,
that
was it?
actor
What?
is
in the
I
Mummy.
think
Wasn't he in
he's
the
South
Mummy?
African. I think is
Yeah.
Oh, Billy
and the
Zane?
girl,
He's-
Billy Zane is not in that fucking
He,
movie.
I know what you're talking
looks
about.
like him. I thought it was.
Someone
Someone
get
get
it.
on
It's not
Google
him.
machine.
It is not him.
God. My mind's blown right now. I thought it was Billy Zane the whole fucking time.
It is not
my
Billy
God.
Zane though.
In the Mummy Returns,
I can see the confusion.
so on the villain girl is played by Patricia Velasquez,
Okay.
who's Mexican American,
Right.
And she plays an Egyptian.
What a fold mean.
There was a whole big Reddit post that blew up the other day about somebody said like you know who Rami Malek is, the guy who played
That's,
Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, that guy.
So
yeah.
he was cast in a role as an Egyptian. And like they were like, oh, y'all couldn't whitewash the Egyptians any more than casting this guy. And this guy, they were like, you know, Rami Malek is literally Egyptian, like literally born in
awesome.
Egypt.
See, that's at the
Egyptian.
point. That's when they're looking for
man.
it. Those
yeah.
people are looking for
Right.
a reason to be upset
Exactly.
and to keep this.
And you know what? I
bullshit
guarantee
going.
you that person was a white person because it's never.
Yeah.
It's
It's
you're
always-
never going to see an Egyptian be like, what, they couldn't put an Egyptian in there.
it's-
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
you're never going to see that because they don't care for the most part. And if
Yeah.
they do, like, I mean, I don't. I think the culture's
I
different.
just
mean,
want to see
Yeah.
a fucking good movie.
Yeah.
That's all.
Exactly.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
but the way I look at it too is acting is like I mean, yeah, I guess I don't know. Kind of you have to maybe just gets the line seems arbitrary to everybody's because everybody's perspective and it just eyes are just different when it comes to these kind of things.
Right.
But when to me, acting is like if you play somebody that you're not, and I know who you are personally and kind of a little bit about your life, but you completely, I'm in complete disbelief that like I forget who you are, then you're doing a damn good job. And this whole thing of like a lot
Christian
of like
Bale and harsh times.
yeah, exactly. This whole thing of like you have to be if you're gonna play a role, you have to be exactly who you know who you are personally has to be close ties to it. That makes no sense. If you say that with that logic, then everybody has their roles are limited. So in that case, that logic. English actors should not be playing American actors, vice versa. American actors should not be playing British, roles with a British accent. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
The logic, it's so
It's so bad. It will never end. It's just,
it's
yeah.
like the point is like you're never gonna satisfy everybody.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. And like I guess the point is like to get like meet like compromise at a certain point, but. It's just too much of like, man. It just all like this constant like trying to please everybody. You're
have you
not.
ever seen the movie PCU?
Never heard
No,
of
I
it.
never heard of it.
Oh my god, it's from the early to mid '90s. It's got Jeremy Piven in it.
Love Jeremy Piven before he
Yeah.
started. He was involved in the Me Too thing. I love Jeremy Piven.
He
Jeremy
was?
Piven.
Oh yeah.
I didn't-
oh yeah.
I haven't heard from
He
him.
stars in that movie.
That's why you haven't heard
Who
from
else is in that? Who's the John Favreau's in that movie?
Nice.
So PCU takes place. It's supposed to stand for politically correct university.
Oh wow.
But
okay.
I mean, but it's actually PCU is like the name of the city that they're in. It's like Peoria, Cambridge University or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
But they talk of like in the movie, like it takes place like this college freshman's day. Like he pisses off every fucking minority faction on campus.
Oh wow.
Like, and you know what I mean? And like there's this one fraternity like that they're trying to anyway. You should go watch that movie because it's such a hearken to our it was like
And
20
this is
years
like in
before
the
its time.
early 90s or late 80s?
Yeah, like Randy introduced me to it. Let me look it up on IMDb. I'll tell you. I feel like it was. I'm gonna guess that it was 1995.
Huh.
Okay.
Nice.
That
I was,
sounds about
you know,
right.
I was just saying when you were talking about like as far as like the logic goes, like it has to be this or that or whatever.
Yeah.
I even remember too that I heard this that where like when Bryan Cranston just was in that movie with Kevin Hart, to where he was paralyzed and like Kevin Hart was taken after him. I can't remember the name of the movie. It just came out like I want to say this year. It's like
He plays a paraplegic.
he
I
plays a
think?
paraplegic, and
Yeah.
people were giving him shit.
Yeah.
Going, why are you having an able-bodied
Yes,
guy
exactly.
playing a paraplegic? I'm like, are you?
The whole
kidding
point
me?
is, as an
Really?
actor,
Yeah, I'm
is,
trying to remember the
is
name
to
of the movie.
transform yourself from
Right.
being, an able-bodied person in real life, and to
Right.
convince me that you are a paraplegic. Otherwise, if I'm watching somebody be themselves, that's not fucking impressive. You're
What-
just
Right.
being yourself.
What's that one? Fucking.
That's the whole point of acting. I mean, I just. What's up? Sorry, go ahead.
No, that one. I just went blank. Fucking the one that passed away recently, or like a couple years ago. He was
Actor.
Kirk Douglas.
He died
like,
today
fucking-
or yesterday, right?
yeah,
a couple days
yesterday.
ago. No, I'm talking about the.
I thought he was dead for like 5 years before that.
Yeah, me
So, to be honest with you,
I used to
It'll
dance
come
like
to
this
me.
for Kirk Douglas.
It'll come to me. I forgot.
I was
Come
like,
on,
oh,
baby.
no shit.
Old act. He passed away though.
Yeah, the imagination or something. I forgot.
Oh,
the
Rugged
Imaginarium
Howard?
of Dr. Parnassus.
No,
You're talking
no.
about Heath Ledger?
Oh man, the guy was in a wheelchair. He was a fucking astronomer. Not astronomer, but
You talking about Stephen King? Not Stephen King.
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah,
you.
the guy that played him in his
Yeah.
fucking
Oh,
biography,
right.
or whatever, biopic or whatever.
Yeah.
It's,
Biopic.
fuck you.
Yeah.
I say biopic.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Right.
But
Oh,
that's okay.
well,
I
yeah.
got
No, he's
corrected
not.
on it.
What he doesn't have the same.
Yeah, exactly.
What was wrong with Stephen King? I mean, Stephen Hawking.
Is it?
But it's the same thing too. Like I'm playing a role of a serial killer. Oh, why don't you have a real serial killer play that?
Or the Dallas Buyer Club with Jared Leto.
Yeah,
or
like
Leto, whatever the
that's
fuck.
the whole point, though. We know he's not like that, but the fact that he can transform himself
Brokeback Mountain.
is, yeah,
Were
exactly.
they gay?
I've seen it.
Never
Whatever. I don't care.
never
I'll
know.
admit it. I'm just curious because
would
like it
never
would make
know.
it made a big fucking deal, and I just wanted to see it because of it.
Whatever.
Well, not because of the fucking or anything.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like Heath Ledger and like when he played the Joker, I just saw the Joker with Joaquin Phoenix not only just like a few weeks ago. I'm like that type of guy to where like certain movies I can't go to the theaters just because of like being busy or just don't even think about it, and I'll just like Amazon it or what have you. But dude, that was a fantastic fucking
Yeah.
movie.
Thank
It
you.
was
Thank you. That's
so
another point on the board.
amazing.
To the fuck you, Rob.
I thought it was fantastic. I really did. I like the tank, but I do know. Hey, I got some buddies too that like fucking hated it. It's like, well, and they had their they had their reasonings for it,
Yeah,
but no, I was
exactly.
I was
I don't
I was
blame 'em.
I was a big fan of it, and I just like how a lot of things like played into it because I mean, you go back into like the depths of like the storytelling with like like with the Killing Joke and a lot of other different things.
Yeah.
The genesis of Joker.
Let me.
and I think
let
they did really
Let
well.
me ask you this though.
No,
'Cause-
fuck you. You can't have a fucking theater.
Okay, well, because before the movie came out, and then after the fact,
Yeah.
because of this too, Todd Phillips, the director, was
Yeah.
saying that this movie's a standalone film and that's it. No sequels, no nothing.
Huh?
Did you?
Interesting.
No,
did
that's
you,
not what he said.
No.
That's
well,
not what he
no,
said.
That's what he said.
No, it's not.
Yes, he said that
False.
before.
I read it
Before the movie came out.
Before the movie came out, he said it was a standalone movie. It was not linked to the DCEU. Not
he
no
said there
sequels or
wasn't gonna-
prequels. He said it wasn't
But
linked
then-
to the DCEU.
Oh, man.
He did say that
Bullshit.
initially.
Break my heart.
But then he came out and he said that it's
That's what I thought.
He
Like,
said that him and
after it came
Joaquin
out-
would not do another movie unless it was warranted, unless the story needed to be told.
I don't think it should. I think it's it.
money talks.
What do you think, man?
money
Ryan,
talks.
what do you think?
I mean, I can understand the art of it. And I mean, I really look at like the entertainment in two lanes. It's either about the art or the money. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
like, I think
pretty
that's
much.
just really
That's what
what
it
it
is.
is. And like, really, when you make enough money and you have that kind of rapport, especially like somebody like Joaquin Phoenix, who's just amazing at whatever he does. Have you ever seen his documentary too? Where,
Oh,
he
I've
tried to be
seen
like a
half of
rapper
it.
and shit?
I've seen half of it.
Bro,
Hey,
his
have you-
manager like tried to shit in his mouth when he was asleep.
Did you see when he was when
it's
he
crazy,
Did you,
bro? It's nuts.
I saw half of it.
It's nuts.
But I remember seeing when he was with Puff Daddy in a studio, and
Yeah.
he's showing him stuff and how frustrated Puff Daddy was.
Oh,
like,
dude, it's
this
hilarious.
motherfucker can't be serious,
Bro, I thought it was like a Spinal
hilarious.
Tap, like a mockumentary.
Yes,
It wasn't at
that's
all.
exactly what that
It
was. It
wasn't
was a
at all.
Spinal Tap.
You remember when he went on David
Letterman?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
no
Fucking
idea. Like
gum.
I watched, I was like, God, this
Had to
guy's-
have been a work. That was a work, right? Like,
Oh yeah, that was for a
great.
movie.
I
He
have no idea. But I just remember that part in the documentary
Yeah.
because I'm watching. I'm like, man, this guy's like fucked, man, and like you kind of get a little empathy from him. You're like, man, this guy like doesn't really have any friends. He's kind of on drugs. He's like whatever.
Yeah,
he's trying
but
to
he
do this
played-
like,
he did
delusional
it-
rap
he did
career.
it so well.
Right? But then his
Dude,
manager's
so
like, fuck this
convincing.
guy. I'm gonna shit in his mouth. He's treating me like shit. He's gonna get some shit, and literally
That is-
squatted
His brother-in-law
Trying to
Casey
take his
Affleck.
shit.
Is
Casey
that?
Affleck, yeah, his brother.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Dude,
you know,
y'all need to
So
watch
if you
it.
ever, speaking of going back to like the whole woke thing, like
Well, no, but forget that. I'm sorry. We're going back to the Joker. You know,
Hold on.
there's
Hold on.
No, no, no.
Okay.
There's,
All right.
there's an original like ending to that, and the original. God damn it. The original ending was that he goes. He's in the like a psych ward,
Yeah,
and,
psych
he
ward,
laughs,
yeah.
and he's
Right.
like, "What's so funny?" And like it was just a joke, and it goes to the flashback of the Waynes getting killed, and it's really Joaquin holding the gun and pointing at Bruce Wayne, and he fires one, and it goes like white, and that was the end.
Oh wow.
So it kind of leaves it up like
Wow.
if he kills him or not, but that's the
Right.
original ending.
Huh? Interesting.
Rip. Oh, that was originally.
I liked
Oh,
I liked how the series of
interesting.
events of people rioting, like that was actually like the kind of like the cause and effect
Yeah.
of like the Waynes getting all fucked up. Spoiler alert for anybody who haven't seen
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah, fucking, we've
Yeah,
talked
I
about
know,
this
right,
in
yeah,
depth
yeah.
already.
Yeah.
But
it's
no,
true.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, man. And like for me, like with the comic movies, I mean, Marvel's Marvel. They do great
They
jobs. And
suck,
some,
right?
They're-
No,
some-
they don't suck. I'm
Some
sorry.
things, some things are great, and some things I'm like, whatever. To me, like DC, it's literally been like not bad. That's a pretty good base hit, and man, I will never see that ever again. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's just
the
my
thing with
taste on
DC.
it. Yeah.
I mean, the thing with it's like
Pissed him off.
no, I'm not. But
I
I've
love
said this
Shazam.
before.
Shazam was a great movie.
Shazam.
yeah.
I just watched that the other day. It
Love
was a
Shazam.
good
Phenomenal
movie.
movie.
Wait,
Shazam
oh, you never
was
seen it
fantastic.
recently?
No, I have seen it.
Where's
Okay.
Diamond?
Yeah.
I just watched it again.
Yeah, of
But
course.
So
all the time. Yeah.
what Marvel when you watch Marvel movies, Marvel movies are for fun.
Yeah.
Marvel movies are for fun and they're for everybody. DC
Right.
movies, even DC comics have always had a darker connotation to them. They deal with a lot of real things and like things that people can actually like really relate to characters.
Dr. Mahan's dick.
And
Oh, yeah, that's
you know what
Dark
I mean?
Horse,
Like
right?
you're that yeah, that's not really. I mean, it is, but it isn't. But
Yeah.
I mean, like you talk about like long run characters. I mean, when you look at like some of the DC comic arcs, like there's some weird shit that happens in DC comic arcs. I don't know if you remember like the reinvention of Superman's powers a couple of times, or when Batman sat in the Mobius chair, or when all the like the flip scripts and stuff like that. When it was when Bruce Wayne's parents got killed and he turned into the Joker instead of Batman.
Right.
Or
yeah.
Thomas Wayne was
Right,
the fucking
Thomas
bad
Where
Wayne
we're
guy.
was
talking,
Batman
yeah,
guy.
I mean, there's all kinds of different, things that happen that deal with the psychological aspect of humanity
Right.
that Marvel doesn't really touch on. And
No,
that's
I
what the
completely
difference-
agree with that.
That's,
I agree with
that's
that
what the
for sure,
difference
yeah.
between, and it's not even really a DC Marvel.
You know what's
thing.
also different? Like, which one started first?
Well, DC started first.
Okay,
Yeah.
so respect the elders. That's all I'm saying.
Which one's made more money? Which studio has made more
Hey,
money?
that don't mean shit.
Yeah, we shit.
That don't mean. Oh, that doesn't
Stand
mean
the
shit.
test
Okay.
of time, baby.
I'm sorry.
They make one good movie, and you're like, "Oh, DC's the best."
Let
All right,
me have
Trump,
it, man.
Calm
Let
down.
me
No, but
have it.
you brought up some really good points as far as like the storytelling and everything, and that's really what DC and really that's what gets Batman over. It's not just fucking Batman; it's the villains and it's the
Well, it's
psychological
Batman's
Yeah.
fucking
compound
carrying
effect
the
on
entire
everything.
fucking
Villains.
comic
Oh
line.
yeah,
Villains.
completely, absolutely, completely. But I think it's the villains that make up Batman. But also too, I think one of the most intriguing like plots for any character would be a plot based on vengeance. Because here's a guy that goes, literally, no pun intended or all pun intended, batshit crazy because he sees his parents get fucking murdered. He's got a shitload of money and goes, "Oh, I'm gonna dressed up like a giant rat with wings and I'm gonna go fight crime." You know,
Yeah.
but what makes him great is just because you have the Joker, you have Two-Face, Poison Ivy, the Penguin, things of that nature, and then everything just morphs into that, and then you tie into different things and what have you. So
what's funny is
it's
that
cool.
if you like the whole Batman comic arts, all of them, like they only like even all of his villains are not really that super powered. You know what I mean?
No,
Like they
absolutely.
are, but they
Right.
aren't. They're not
Yeah.
like
Their backgrounds and their
Galactus
stories
and
are just-
they're
is
not
what's
Silver
great.
Surfer.
Right.
They're not
a fucking
Doctor
Sentinel.
Doom.
Yeah.
They're not Thanos.
They can never be
You know
It's
what I
not over
mean?
the top. It's
Yeah.
You know what I
somewhat
mean? Yeah,
believable.
exactly. It's a little bit more grounded,
Right.
in reality. But then you have, but there are characters like that in the DC universe.
Fucking
you know what I mean?
Galactus and shit.
that's my
Marvel.
That's
I
my
know
knock.
they're not.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
Galactus over there. In
well, I
DC.
mean, but DC has Brainiac and
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Mistlepeltic or whatever, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Superman.
Right.
You got General Zod. You have a lot of like really weird, like overpowered villains in DC universe. Marvel has overpowered villains also, but I mean, there's
Superman versus Thanos with the gauntlet. Who will win?
Oh, that's a tough one, man.
I'm gonna say Thanos.
I think Thanos
Thanos.
wins.
So I mean,
Probably
with the
Thanos.
gauntlet, yeah.
That's my knock
fucking-
against. And you know, I'm kind of a fan in certain aspects of it, but
Wagon
like that's
wheel.
my knock against like anime in some cases, especially like Dragon Ball, to where it's like, now hold on, before you get.
I've
before you
never
get-
seen one episode
Okay,
of Dragon Ball.
so
Z.
here's the thing.
fucking
So here's the thing.
drawn the
In
fuck
pro
out.
wrestling,
David Lynch
wrestling, everybody loves Dragon Ball Z. Like just anime in general, just anything. And then, like there's certain anime that I really grew up. Right, there's really anime that I grew up with. Like I grew up with like Big O, Cowboy Bebop,
Attack on Titan?
Gundam
Ultra
Wing, Dragon Ball Z,
yeah.
stuff like that. But like my only knock on Dragon Ball Z is like how we just talked about, to where it's like with DC you have a lot of characters, villains, and heroes, to where it's like they don't really have like crazy superpowers. They just have a lot of these different high level skill sets, right? And Marvel, everybody's got a fucking superpower. Everybody's an alien. Everybody came from some far off galaxy or whatever. That's my knock on Dragon Ball, is that like everybody's a god, and not only are you a god, but now you have levels. So it's like Super Saiyan God level 1, 2, 3, and then the only thing that fucking changes is like the hair or the color. Like that's it.
That couldn't
And
even
then
be
it's just
Woody
like-
from Toy Story.
they're
Right, right. Hey, there you go. And I'm just saying, I'm like, well, how many levels of God are
They're
there?
From Planet
And then,
Vegeta.
like,
The
what do
two
you-
people from Planet Vegeta,
you know what I
though,
mean?
man. Like,
No, Dragon Ball Z, the series, I liked, but anything after that, like, I got a buddy that like
I
loves
hear
The Simpsons, and he says I don't pay attention to anything from The Simpsons past like 2003. Like anything past 2003 is irrelevant to me, and that's how I feel about Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I hear.
like basically Dragon Ball from the inception all the way past the Boo saga. Like I don't pay attention to like everything else outside of that, and people would be like, "Oh no, there's some good shit there." Da, da,
You
da.
need to
And I'm
check
like,
out
man,
Superman. I mean, so far I've seen a little bit of Superman.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, but okay, whatever. That's
yeah, it's just one of those things. And then Pokemon. I missed that train. I missed that train. I didn't.
Me too. I didn't.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
glad I missed it too.
I know. See, I'm getting heat right now just talking about that. You know what I mean?
Heat, yes, sir, you are.
Yeah. Shit.
You know what we really Landrum and I, when we were in high school, what we were big into was Magic the Gathering cards.
Of course you were.
Oh hell yeah!
I know.
And you too, right? You were into it?
No, I had a lot of buddies that were into
Oh,
it.
okay.
Like a lot of buddies.
That's a white thing.
Yeah, that is.
That's all.
Hey,
Okay.
Vega,
Yeah, that is
Because
a
it
lot.
costs
Vega-
money.
Yeah,
Vega's
Exactly,
pretty
exactly.
pretty Hispanic, and he was fucking in that shit.
I'm the only minority here, so I can say that, right?
Whatever.
Yeah.
What? Me too, son of a bitch. Me too. I'm a little deluded, but yeah.
A little
But all right, I'm there with you, Jacob. Don't you're not alone.
That's fucking awesome.
He's a little deluded. He pulled up in his Lexus.
Yeah, I'm
He's
deluded.
a little deluded.
Yeah.
The only reason I didn't like Magic
A
because it had
used
too many.
one.
I couldn't fucking play it. I did not know how to play
I
it.
didn't get that shit
didn't
either.
I didn't have the fucking attention span to try to learn it. To be
Yeah,
honest. I was
yeah.
like, whatever. It is what
I
it
was
is.
fucking nerds.
It was interesting.
and-
The
yeah.
mana, right?
Yeah.
Mana.
I didn't-
Yeah, I was a video game guy. That was
Yeah,
it for me.
I
was
Tony Hawk all day.
Yeah.
GoldenEye.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater, like I was into that and GoldenEye, but like I never really got into like video games after that.
Yeah,
Just a quick bit on that. I saw a meme somewhere saying that right now it's 1998. You have a fucking large cheese pizza coming your way.
Word.
You have fucking GoldenEye on the TV, and your friends are coming in with their controllers with Rumble packs. Life does not
Punch
get any
'em.
better than this right now.
Hell yeah.
That's true, man.
No, yeah.
Except for the GoldenEye part, you know.
Well, whatever.
Oh, dude,
fucking,
I never really
WrestleMania
played it.
2000.
Yeah, no
No,
mercy.
fuck
No
that
mercy.
shit.
Warzone,
No mercy.
maybe.
Big
Yeah,
thing.
all
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
GoldenEye, big heads, all slaps. Come on.
Big heads, all slaps. Oh, fuck
Dude,
yes.
that's what's up, bro.
I'm going
that's
better.
it right there.
Doom 95 on modem.
There you go.
Play
56K.
Modem
yeah.
56K with your neighbor across the street who's
Dude,
like
fuck
20
that.
years older than
I
you.
downloaded that shit on my computer and was playing it online the other day. You can stream Doom on your computer.
I have-
That's how much. That's how small the files are now.
Wow.
Yeah, I got
I still
Doom 1
remember
and
all
2
the
in my apps.
I still remember all the cheat codes.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
IDKFA,
awesome.
IDDQD, God mode, ID clip to go fucking through walls and shit.
Yeah,
oh,
dude,
man, I know it too,
I was
man.
dominating that shit.
Hell yeah, fucking Doom.
Well,
man.
on that note, guys.
On that note.
We're
thanks
touching
for
2 hours.
coming out, Ryan. Man, this is
Thank you
fucking
guys,
fun, man. We
I appreciate
it.
y'all, man.
I know you're a busy man, and
Yeah.
it means a lot to us. For
Ruthless Ryan Davidson,
Yeah,
thank you for
no
coming
problem.
and hanging out in the
Yes, sir.
studio. He's got a fucking busy time ahead of him. He took time out of his schedule to come hang out with us, so we really appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna put up a video of Ryan chopping Jake on our video.
I forgot
bro.
about that.
I didn't.
Let's do it. I got about 4 beers in me. Let's do it.
I appreciate you guys. Thank y'all, man. I appreciate
Yes,
it.
sir.
Absolutely, we wish you the best in all your endeavors. We're constantly watching you and promoting your stuff, so thank you for being a friend of the show, coming out. And on that note,
Yes, you're fucked.
I have been Rob,
Yeah, I'm Paul.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Jay, guys.
All right,
and we will
ta-ta.
catch you on the next one. Guys, we got so caught up talking to Ryan that we didn't get to plug any of his locations where you can find him at. So make sure you go check out Ryan Davidson, Instagram and Twitter at RDBear57. That's at RDBear57. Like Ryan Davidson, the Bear, 57. Come on. Ryan Davidson, check him out, Reality of Wrestling. Go out, do yourself a favor. Go out, check out a show. Gentlemen No Class is proud to be a part of the HC Universal Network. Gentlemen No Class is produced and recorded at M5 Studios and is mixed and edited by Final Curtain Media.